Part 43. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 422. Dr. Wu took the business card and looked at it with a look of surprise. Then he looked at Li Jie. His attitude was obviously much more enthusiastic. It turns out to be Mr. Li. Li Jie asked, Dr. Wu, tell me the truth, what is the situation of my girlfriend's mother? Dr. Wu listened and said thoughtfully, Mr. Li, we have tried our best, but the patient's condition is very bad. He has severe rib fractures, lung contusions, a ruptured liver, and is almost completely broken. We are lucky to be able to save him. Her main problems now are liver bleeding and high fever. If the high fever cannot go down. At this point, he did not continue. Mr. Li, your girlfriend is too young. There are some things I dare not say to her for fear that she won't be able to bear it. But you have to be mentally prepared and comfort her if the worst happens. Li Jie's heart sank after hearing this. The doctor said it tactfully, but he was actually saying that the patient is unlikely to get better, so you should prepare for the funeral. If Dr. Wu is transferred to another hospital. Although this hospital is also a tertiary hospital, relatively speaking, the medical conditions are better than those of the provincial hospital. The drive from Zizhu to Quancheng only takes more than 2 hours. Dr. Wu shook his head. The patient's life may be in danger at any time. She cannot be transferred to another hospital in this condition. If the situation can be stabilized, I will definitely recommend that you transfer her to another hospital. Li Jie finally understood that the Queen Mother's current situation could only be resigned to fate and see if she could survive it. If the situation can be stabilized, it will be easier to handle, and he can be transferred to the provincial hospital or the top hospital in Shanghai for full treatment. But I'm afraid that she won't be able to survive this most dangerous level, and it will be useless no matter how much money she has. Dr. Wu, I leave everything to you. As long as I can save the life of my girlfriend and her mother, money is not an issue. Dr. Wu said solemnly, Mr. Li, we will try our best, but you still have to be mentally prepared. After coming out of the doctor's office, Li Jie went to the dean's office and chatted with the vice dean in charge of medical treatment for a while. The other party promised to arrange an emergency medical team, led by the most senior surgical expert in the hospital, to carry out all-out treatment on the Queen Mother. Treatment. After walking out of the dean's office, Li Jie sighed inwardly. He had no connections in Ludong. Fortunately, Dean Feng was willing to sell him face. When I returned to the ICU ward, I saw that Wang Haining had woken up and was sitting on the chair with her beautiful eyes lifeless. Ruan Jing was taking care of her. When she heard the footsteps, she subconsciously raised her head and saw that Li Jie was back. She quickly stood up and stumbled into his arms. Brother Jie, my mother, is there still hope? Li Jie hugged her and comforted her softly and said, Don't worry, I have already contacted the dean. The dean promised to arrange an emergency medical team for Aunt's full treatment. There is a high possibility that she will get better. Wang Haining felt obviously relieved after hearing this. Brother Jie, thank you. I really don't know what I would do without you. Her eyes were full of dependence and gratitude. Why are you so polite to me? Your business is my business, and your aunt is also my relative. Li Jie paused and said reproachfully, You really shouldn't have hidden such a big thing from me. You should have told me as soon as possible. Brother Jie, I'm sorry, I just don't want to cause you any trouble, Wang Haining whispered. Li Jie turned and said softly, Don't be stupid, I feel sorry for you before it's too late. Why would I find you troublesome? Next time if something happens to you, you have to tell me as soon as possible. Do you understand? Yeah, Wang Haining hummed softly after hearing this, and her eye circles could not help but turn red again. This guy is becoming more and more popular with girls. If you want to coax a girl, just open your mouth and do it. Li Jie turned to Ruanjing and said, Xiaojing, go buy some food, milk, steamed buns, and the like. Okay, Ruanjing turned around and went to buy food. Li Jie turned back to Wang Zhaining and said, you haven't eaten for a day. Your body will collapse if you continue like this. When Ruanjing buys the food, you can eat a little and then sleep for a while. I will take care of you over there, auntie. Wang Zhaining shook her head and said softly, I can't eat, and I can't sleep. You have to eat even if you can't eat. If you fall down, what will auntie do? Li Jie said, kissed her chapped lips and moistened them for her. Besides, it makes me feel bad to see you like this. Wang Zhaining looked at him, tears couldn't help but burst out, and she was moved to tears. Okay, stop crying, your eyes are swollen from crying. Li Jie hugged her again. After being gentle for a while, Li Jie thought about something and asked, the driver who hit my aunt is still at large, right? When Wang Zhaining heard this, she got up from his arms, with hatred in her beautiful eyes. If the hit-and-run driver hadn't been involved, and if her mother had been rescued in time, the situation wouldn't have been as serious as it was now. Li Jie looked at her and said in a deep voice, Zhaining, please tell me the situation in detail. Auntie needs to be rescued, and we cannot let go of the murderer. Yes, Wang Zhaining nodded vigorously, I heard from the traffic police that it was a big red truck. After listening to what she said, Li Jie felt that things were a bit difficult to handle. The traffic police investigated the surveillance and interviewed witnesses, but the clues they had were still very limited. They only knew that it was a large red truck with a license plate starting with Suji. I don't know the specific license plate number or what the driver looks like. The police have launched a wanted search for the driver responsible for the accident, but it is not yet certain when he will be caught. Li Jie took out his mobile phone and started making calls. After making several calls, he finally got in touch with a somewhat powerful figure in the Zizhu City Police. Ruanjing also came back at this time and bought a lot of food, including milk, steamed buns, meat cakes, porridge, side dishes, etc. Li Jie hung up the phone and said to Wang Zhaining, I have asked someone to contact the police here to follow up on this case. I will post a reward online later to see if I can find more clues. Brother Jie, thank you. Wang Zhaining's eyes were full of affection and gratitude. Li Jie smiled and said, okay, please stop saying thank you. It's better to eat something quickly and then sleep for a while. Maybe when you wake up, auntie will be better. Yes, Wang Zhaining nodded slightly. Li Jie picked up a small steamed bun and fed it to her mouth, eat it. Wang Zhaining glanced at him, opened her mouth, bit the steamed bun, and ate it slowly. Li Jie took another carton of milk and inserted the straw into it, here, drink some more milk. Wang Zhaining ate 2 or 3 steamed dumplings, then shook her head and said she couldn't eat any more. Li Jie didn't force her to eat more. It was normal for her to feel angry and have no appetite. He just made her drink another carton of milk. Then he found a nurse, asked for a bed, and put her to sleep. Wang Zhaining was lying on the hospital bed and said softly, Brother Jie, I can't sleep, I'm worried. She was worried that something would happen to her mother and didn't dare to sleep. Li Jie reached out and took her hand, holding it gently, don't worry, I'm here. Wang Zhaining snorted slightly and watched him slowly close his eyes. She was exhausted both physically and mentally. She had been struggling before, but now that she had something to rely on, she relaxed and fell asleep quickly. Li Jie looked at Wang Zhaining's sleeping face with complicated thoughts. His rebirth changed the fate of many people intentionally or unintentionally, including Xiaoqiao, Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiyu, Shen Xinyi, He Zhigang, Wang Zhaiheng, etc. Including Wang Zhaining in front of him. He didn't know if Wang Zhaining's mother had been in a car accident in the previous life, but the fate of Wang Zhaining, mother and daughter in this life was obviously affected by him. If Wang Zhaining hadn't been with him and gone home early during the holidays, her mother might not have been in a car accident. Small changes can have a major impact on the trajectory of your life. Of course, Li Jie would not blame himself for this. This is Wang Haining's choice, her mother's choice, and even more importantly, fate's choice, which has nothing to do with him directly. However, he would be nicer to the girl in front of him. Li Jie gently let go of Wang Haining's hand, helped her tuck the quilt, and then stood up. Xiaojing, let's go out. After leaving the general ward, Li Jie went to the ICU ward. The Queen Mother was lying on the hospital bed, with a ventilator inserted, and the heart rate monitor made beeping sounds from time to time. Her eyes were tightly closed, a large number of bandages were tied around her body, and her face was abnormally flushed. Even though Li Jie didn't have any medical knowledge, he could tell that the other party's condition was very bad. Dr. Wu and a male doctor in his early 50s stood in front of the hospital bed, discussing softly, with a guarding nurse beside him. Seeing Li Jie come in, Dr. Wu said hello to him. Mr. Li. Then he introduced, this is our director Xia. Li Jie nodded to the two of them, and then asked, how is the situation now? Dr. Wu shook his head, the high fever still doesn't go away, and there are still signs of bleeding in the liver. You still have to be mentally prepared. Li Jie's heart sank after hearing this. The meaning of the other party's words was obvious. It would be difficult for the patient to get through this. Shanghai City, Sandalwood Villa. Zhou Ziyu had a dream that she was pregnant, and then Li Jie held a grand wedding for her. Wearing a pure white wedding dress, she walked towards Li Jie step by step. Xiaoqiao, Lu Kaiyu, Shen Xinyi, and Bai Wei all became her bridesmaids. But why is there Bai Wei? But just when Li Jie was about to put the ring on her, the door of the wedding venue was pushed open, and a girl broke in and shouted, Brother Jie, you can't marry her. Zhou Ziyu woke up from her sleep, opened her eyes, and took a deep breath. Thinking back to the dream just now, she felt that it was unlucky. Who was the girl who broke in at the end? It feels like Lu Yufei, but not quite like her. Zhou Ziyu sat up from the bed and looked around, only to find that Li Jie was missing. But the clothes he took off were still there. Zhou Ziyu picked up the nightgown lying aside and put it on, left the room, and went downstairs to the living room. Xiaoqiao, Lu Kaiyu, Shen Xinyi, and others were all there in the living room. Zhou Ziyu was a little surprised. Li Jie didn't go to steal incense and jade in the middle of the night, so where was he? At this time, Lu Ji and another female bodyguard came back from outside carrying a lot of breakfast. Zhou Ziyu glanced at Lu Ji and asked, Ziyaja, have you seen your Mr. Li? Lu Ji stopped and said, Mr. Li took Ruanjing away in the middle of the night. It seemed there was something urgent. Zhou Ziyu was even more surprised when he heard this, and the attention of Xiaoqiao, Lu Kaiyu, Shen Xinyi, and others were also attracted. What was Li Jie doing out in the middle of the night? Li Jie and Ruanjing also ate something and then stood guard outside the ICU ward. It was almost 8 o'clock when Zhou Ziyu called and asked where he was. Li Jie just told her that he had to go out for a few days for something and asked her not to worry, without saying much. Then he called Lu Kaiyu, Zhuang Qian, and Bai Wei to arrange company affairs. Time passed little by little, and Li Jie leaned on the chair and yawned. He also didn't sleep all day and all night. He worked hard and ran around all night last night, and now he was really sleepy and tired. Ruanjing glanced at him and said, Mr. Li, why don't you go and take a nap? I'll just keep an eye on you. Li Jie shook his head lightly, it's okay. He promised Wang Haining to help her take care of her mother, and he must do it. At around 10 o'clock, bad news came. The Queen Mother's condition had deteriorated and she was critically ill again. Watching a group of doctors and nurses pushing the Queen Mother into the emergency room, Li Jie had a hunch that it would be difficult for the Queen Mother to get through this. He thought for a while and decided to wake up Wang Haining. This is a life or death moment for her loved ones, and she should stay by the side. Even if there is really unfortunate news, She has the right to know it as soon as possible. He couldn't make the decision for her. Brother Zhe. After being woken up by Li Zhe, Wang Zhining was a little confused at first. Soon, after she came to her senses, she realized something. Her expression changed and she quickly asked, "Brother Zhe, is something wrong with my mother?" Li Zhe found it difficult to speak. "Auntie, the injury was repeated and she was sent to the emergency room for rescue." Wang Zhining couldn't help but swayed after hearing this, and Li Zhe quickly hugged her. "Zhining, don't worry too much. The doctor said he will do his best. You also have to believe that Auntie will be auspicious." Wang Zhining shook her head in despair. "Brother Zhe, please stop comforting me. I'm already prepared." Outside the rescue room, Li Zhe took his eyes away from the closed door and turned to look at Wang Zhining beside him. She lowered her head slightly, clasped her hands together, and whispered something in her mouth, as if praying. "If my mother could get through this, I would be willing to lose 10 years of my life." To be honest, Li Zhe and the Queen Mother have never met and have no feelings. It is impossible to say that he is more worried about each other. But seeing Wang Zhining like this, he felt very distressed and felt very uncomfortable. He sincerely hoped that the Queen Mother could turn the crisis around. Within half an hour, the light in the emergency room light box went out. The rescue was over too quickly. Li Zhe slowly stood up from the chair, feeling a very bad feeling in his heart. He put his arm around Wang Zhining's shoulders. Wang Zhining also had a premonition of something. Staring closely at the door of the rescue room, her pretty face turned pale. The door to the emergency room opened slowly, and Dr. Wu walked out first. He took off his mask and said with a regretful expression, "Sorry, we tried our best." After hearing these words, Wang Zhining felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her face turned pale and she almost fainted. Her body went limp and she collapsed in Li Zhe's arms. Her eyes were red and tears burst out of her eyes instantly. "Brother Zhe, my mother is gone." Seeing her grief-stricken look, Li Zhe didn't know what to say. In such a situation, any comfort is false. He hugged Wang Zhining into his arms and patted her back gently. "Cry, cry, just cry." Wang Zhining lay on his shoulder, crying heartbreakingly. Other doctors and nurses also came out of the emergency room one after another, passing by Li Zhe and Wang Zhining, and they couldn't bear to see her crying so hard. Dr. Wu even sighed and said, "My condolences." Although these doctors are used to seeing life and death, they can't help but feel pity when they see such a beautiful girl crying so heartbroken. Finally, two nurses rolled out a hospital bed covered with a white cloth. Wang Zhining got up from Li Zhe's arms and threw herself on the hospital bed. "Mom!" She cried even harder, heartbreakingly. The two nurses pushing the cart looked at her sympathetically. After waiting for a while, one of the older nurses said to Li Zhe, "Young man, you'd better advise your girlfriend to express her condolences." Li Zhe also felt that Wang Zhining had almost finished her crying, so he helped her up from the hospital bed. "Okay, Zhining, stop crying. My aunt in heaven definitely doesn't want you to be like this." Wang Zhining lay on Li Zhe's shoulder and cried, watching the hospital bed being pushed away little by little, when suddenly her crying stopped. She fainted in his arms. "I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn." Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 423. 3 or 4 days later, in an ordinary community in Zizhu City. Wang Zhining sat on the sofa with her legs in her arms, her chin resting between her knees, staring blankly at the ground, and the TV was on, showing a TV series. Li Zhe walked out of the kitchen with a large bowl of noodles and glanced at her. "Zhining, let's eat." The noodles are tomato and egg noodles, freshly made and steaming hot. Hearing his cry, Wang Zhining came to her senses, raised her head and said softly, "Brother Zhe, I have no appetite and don't want to eat." Li Zhe put the noodles on the coffee table, came to sit next to Wang Zhining, and hugged her. If you don't want to eat, you have to eat as much as possible. You haven't eaten much in the past few days. Your body will collapse if you continue like this. In the past few days, he has been helping Wang Zhining take care of the Queen Mother's funeral. Wang Zhining could not accept the fact that her mother had passed away. She had been crying and crying for the past few days. On the day of the Queen Mother's funeral, she fainted from crying again. She was so sad that she refused to eat or drink, and had difficulty falling asleep. She was always woken up by nightmares. After a few days, she obviously lost a lot of weight, and her face was still beautiful, but her beautiful eyes were red and swollen, making her look haggard and sad. Feeling distressed. People can't help but want to hold her in their arms, love and pity her. That's what Li Jie did. He hugged Wang Zhining and kissed her lovingly. He took a look at the TV and found that it was playing a sad drama, I Am a Grass. He picked up the remote control and turned off the TV. She was already feeling uncomfortable enough, wouldn't watching this kind of sad drama make it even more difficult? Come, let's eat noodles. Li Jie picked up the noodle bowl, put a few noodles in his mouth and put them to Wang Zhining's mouth. Wang Zhining looked at the noodles and shook her head slightly. Brother Jie, I really don't want to eat it. Li Jie said warmly, if you don't want to eat, you have to eat. Be good and obey me. Wang Zhining basically hasn't eaten much in the past few days. She only drinks milk to replenish some water and nutrition, and she has lost 7 or 8 pounds. She was not fat to begin with. She was 17 centimeters tall and weighed less than 110 kilograms. She lost so much weight and her haggard appearance made people feel distressed. Wang Zhining glanced at him, hesitantly opened her mouth and ate the noodles. Here, eat a piece of tomato. It's appetizing. Li Jie gave her another piece of tomato. A big bowl of noodles. Wang Zhining only took a few bites before she felt full. Li Jie didn't force her to eat, he just picked up the poached eggs and said, then eat the eggs. This is a double yolk egg, which is as big as an ordinary goose egg. Wang Zhining shook her head slightly. Brother Jie, you can eat it? Li Jie smiled, took a bite of the poached egg, then kissed Wang Zhining and fed it to her. Wang Zhining looked at him with her beautiful eyes wide open, her throat rolled, and she swallowed the poached egg in her mouth. Click came the sound of the door lock turning outside, and the door was pushed open. Ruanjing walked in carrying a plastic bag. She happened to witness the scene and couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Noticing Ruanjing's gaze, Wang Zhining blushed a little and pushed Li Jie away embarrassedly. Li Jie didn't care at all. He smiled at her, then turned to Ruanjing and said, did you buy the things? Well, I bought it. Ruanjing gestured to the plastic bag in her hand. There were several bags of fresh milk in the plastic bags, as well as some fruits such as bananas and kiwis. Give Jining a bag of milk, and put the rest in the refrigerator together with the fruit. After speaking, Li Jie took another bite of the poached egg and fed it to Wang Zhining again in front of Ruanjing. Wang Zhining subconsciously glanced at Ruanjing and wanted to avoid her head shyly, but Li Jie grabbed her head and forced it to her. There is no need to worry about a personal bodyguard like Ruanjing. Ruanjing took out a bag of milk and placed it on the coffee table, turning a blind eye to the intimate scene between the two. After Ruanjing left, Wang Zhining said sheepishly, Brother Jie, Xiaojing is here. Li Jie smiled after hearing this and then fed her. One bite after another, a big poached egg was quickly finished. Are the poached eggs delicious? Wang Zhining bit her lip, glanced at him, and said nothing, but her mood was obviously much better than before. Li Jie picked up the milk on the coffee table and handed it to her, drink the milk too. When she didn't answer, he smiled and said, if you don't drink, I'll feed you another drink. After hearing this, Wang Zhining bit her lip subconsciously, took the milk, and drank it slowly. Li Jie looked at her and smiled, you are so good. Then he picked up her chopsticks and ate the remaining noodles. He doesn't dislike her either. Wang Haining drank milk and looked at Li Jie, who was eating noodles. He gradually became a little crazy, and his eyes were full of tenderness. Just when Li Jie had finished eating the noodles, his cell phone suddenly rang. He took out his cell phone, took a look at it, and then said to Wang Haining, "I'm going to take a call." "Yeah," Wang Haining forced a smile. Li Jie looked surprised when he saw it. This was the first time he saw Wang Haining smile in the past few days. Although her laughter was worse than her tears, it at least proved that her mood had improved. Looking at Li Jie's leaving figure, Wang Haining sighed softly. She knew that the call must have come from Li Jie's other woman. If it was about company matters, he would not go behind her back. More than half an hour later, Li Jie finished answering the phone. Seeing that he was back, Wang Haining bit her lip and said, "Brother Jie, why don't you go back first? Don't delay the company's affairs because of me." Li Jie smiled, sat down next to her, and held her in his arms. "Don't be stupid. For me, taking good care of you is the most important thing right now. The company will not collapse even if I am away from you for a few days." He was talking coaxing words of love, but he felt a little headache in his heart. The call just now was from Xiaoqiao, Zhouziu, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xinyi, asking about his situation. Li Jie's sudden outing this time not only put aside all the company's affairs, but also had little contact with them. It was so abnormal that it made them suspicious. Wang Haining didn't know that Li Jie was coaxing her. His words were 30% true and 70% false, but she was moved. She leaned tightly into his arms, listening to his strong heartbeat, and couldn't express anything in her heart. A peace of mind. Li Jie glanced at the clock on the wall. The time was past 9 o'clock. He picked up Wang Haining from the waist, came to her side and put her on the bed. This room is her boudoir, with ordinary decoration, but it is very warm and full of the atmosphere of a little girl. Li Jie pulled the quilt to cover her. "Haining, please take a nap." She hadn't had a good rest in the past few days. After being woken up by a nightmare yesterday, she couldn't sleep until dawn. Wang Haining hummed softly, then moved her body to the side. "Brother Jie, you should also get some sleep, because I didn't get a good rest last night." In the past few days, Li Jie had been with her day and night, and he didn't get a good rest. He had dark circles under his eyes. Li Jie smiled at her and said, "You go to sleep first. When you fall asleep, I will sleep again." "Sleep together," Wang Haining said coquettishly. "If you don't sleep, I won't sleep either." "Okay," Li Jie smiled, took off his shoes, got on the bed, pulled back the quilt, got in, and hugged her. This bed is a single bed, which is a bit crowded for two people to sleep in. The quilt is also a single quilt, and the cover for two people is a bit small, so the two of them have to hug each other tightly. This is how Li Jie and Wang Haining slept these past few days. The master bedroom was the Queen Mother's room, so it was inconvenient for Li Jie to live there. In addition, Wang Haining always had nightmares at night, and she couldn't sleep without him by her side. Li Jie hugged Wang Haining tightly and said with a smile, "Go to sleep." Wang Haining hummed softly and then closed her eyes. Li Jie looked at Wang Haining and sighed softly in his heart. It was a bit torturous to hold a beautiful woman in his arms but not be able to touch her, especially since she always moved around. But her relative had just passed away and was still in the period of filial piety. He had to endure the torture no matter what. Beep. At this time, the phone rang again. Wang Haining was also alarmed and opened her eyes again. Li Jie picked up the cell phone placed aside, glanced at it, and connected. A few minutes later, he hung up the phone, glanced at Wang Haining, and said in a deep voice, "Maybe the driver who caused the accident has been found." When Wang Haining heard this, she sat up from the bed excitedly. "Really? Her biggest obsession now is to find the driver who caused the accident and avenge her mother. Li Zhe nodded. The clues this time are probably true. He previously used 300,000 yuan to entrust the police with a reward for finding clues about the driver responsible for the accident, and through the police, he posted more than 1,000 investigation reports throughout the city. 300,000 yuan is a huge amount of money in this era. You can buy a house in a small county. Reporting a driver involved in an accident is also less risky. Therefore, the police receive several tips every day, but these tips are wrong, but the tip received today is very likely to be true. The clues given by the informant matched those provided by a previously found witness. After hearing this, Wang Haining said excitedly, "Brother Zhe, let's go to the police station quickly." After saying that, she was about to get up. Li Zhe held her shoulders and said, "Haining, don't worry. The suspect is in Su province. The Zizhu city police have contacted the police in Su province and sent people there to make sure that the other party is really the driver. Will notify us as soon as possible." Wang Haining reluctantly nodded and said, "Okay then." Li Zhe hugged her and lay down again. "Let's go to sleep." "But I can't sleep," Wang Haining said softly. After hearing the news, she couldn't sleep. "You have to sleep even if you can't sleep." Li Zhe hugged Wang Haining's soft body tightly and buried her into his chest. On the afternoon of the next day, January 27th, the police sent word that the suspect was the driver responsible for the accident and he was detained. On the 28th, the driver responsible for the accident was escorted back to Zizhu city. On the morning of the 29th, Li Zhe took Wang Haining to the city bureau to meet with the driver. After staying in the city bureau for more than an hour, Wang Haining couldn't help but cry again after coming out. Li Zhe held her in his arms to comfort her. He used to think that this girl was a love brain, but now he found that she dared to love and hate. If he and the police hadn't stopped him at the police station just now, Wang Haining would have really beaten the driver who caused the accident. When she saw the other person, her eyes turned red and she rushed towards him, punching and kicking him. The police told her not to be impulsive, as the other party would be punished by law. She said bitterly that the other party could only be sentenced to more than 10 years at most, but her mother was dead. Li Zhe hugged Wang Haining tightly and said, "Don't worry, I will definitely make him receive the sanctions he deserves. The best penalty for malicious escape, causing death, is 15 years. He believes that the other party will be severely punished based on the fairness of the law." Wang Haining choked with sobs and sighed, "Brother Zhe, thank you for avenging my mother." She knew that without Li Zhe, it would have been impossible to bring the driver to justice so smoothly. It's even possible that if the other party really gets away with it, then her mother's death will be in vain. Li Zhe smiled and said, "Okay, how many times have I told you, don't be polite to me, you are my woman, and everything I do for you is what I should do. Don't be polite to me next time, do you understand?" Wang Haining looked at him and nodded lightly. She owed him so much, and the only thing she could do was to commit herself to him and serve him wholeheartedly. Li Zhe hailed a taxi and said, "Let's go shopping and cook a sumptuous meal in the evening to send Auntie off on her last journey." Wang Haining's eyes turned red again after hearing this. She bit her lip and nodded vigorously. In the evening, Li Zhe and Wang Haining cooked a sumptuous meal. 3 pairs of bowls and chopsticks were placed on the table, and the extra pair of bowls and chopsticks was prepared for the Queen Mother. Li Zhe filled the glass with wine, then he turned to look at Wang Haining beside him, and took her hand. "Auntie, don't worry. I promise you that I will take good care of Haining and will never let her down." After he finished speaking, he picked up the cup and spilled the wine on the ground. Wang Haining also filled a glass of wine. "Mom, I have a boyfriend." As she spoke, her eyes turned red, and she couldn't help but shed tears again. "You said you wanted me to find a good man who treats me sincerely, and I found him." Having said this, Wang Zhining paused and glanced at Li Jie. I will be with him wholeheartedly, don't worry. After saying that, she also picked up the cup and spilled the wine on the ground. The moment the drink hit the floor, the light suddenly flashed several times. Wang Zhining was stunned for a moment and burst into tears. Mom, are you back? On the morning of the 30th, Li Jie accompanied Wang Zhining to the cemetery to pay homage to the Queen Mother. Then in the afternoon of the same day, the two left Zizhou and returned to Shanghai. Li Jie has been out for a week. As the Chinese New Year is approaching, the company is busy and there are many things waiting for him to deal with. He has no choice but to go back. Xiaoqiao, Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xinyi were even more complaining about him. At around 7 p.m., the plane arrived in Shanghai. Sitting in the Bentley Arnage RL driven by Zhou Chao, Li Jie glanced at the haggard and sad Wang Zhining beside him, and couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. He really couldn't bear to send Wang Zhining back to the rental house like this, and he wouldn't be relieved. She had just lost her only relative, and it was the time when she needed someone to comfort and accompany her the most. But if they want to bring her back to the villa, Xiaoqiao, Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xinyi will definitely explode. It's one thing for them to know that he has another woman outside, but it's another thing to bring him into the house. Wang Zhining seemed to notice his embarrassment, bit her lip and said, Brother Jie, just take me back to the rental house. After a pause, she said, you have been with me for so many days, it's time to spend time with other sisters. Seeing her well-behaved and sensible appearance, Li Jie felt softer and made a decision. I'd better stay with you one more night. Let's go back to the rental house together. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanjie. Chapter 424. More than 20 minutes later, the Bentley Arnage RL arrived near the National Normal University and drove into the community where Wang Zhining rented. After getting off the car, Li Jie sent Zhou Chao and Ruan Jing away, and went upstairs with Wang Zhining. When he reached the third floor, he took out his key and opened the door of the rental house. No one has been living there for more than a week, and the small rental house looks a little deserted. Entering the room, Li Jie said to Wang Zhining, Zhining, go take a bath first. Wang Zhining nodded, opened the suitcase, found a change of clothes and carried it to the bathroom. Soon, the sound of water came from the bathroom. Listening to the sound of water rushing in the bathroom, Li Jie couldn't help but feel a little turbulent. He is young and strong, and has good physical fitness. He has not practiced driving for more than a week, so it is inevitable that he is a bit skilled. Li Jie looked around and saw that the room was a little messy, so he started to tidy it up. After briefly tidying up the room, he sat down on the small sofa, picked up the coffee table remote control and turned on the TV. After watching TV for a while, Wang Zhining came out of the bathroom. She wore a very sexy mesh lace suspender nightgown, a white semi-sheer nightgown with the hem just reaching her hips. Her white and smooth arms and slender legs were completely exposed to the air. Because she had just taken a shower, her skin was extremely white, tender, and moist, and it was really breakable. The water droplets falling from her wet hair dripped on her clothes, and the wonderful scenery was looming in the white nightgown. Wet temptation. Her pretty face was pure and beautiful, revealing a pale and haggard look, which added a bit of pity to her. It made people feel pity for her but also made her want to bully her. Seeing Li Jie staring at her, his eyes full of possessive desire, as if he wanted to eat her, Wang Zhining's pretty face turned red. She bit her lip and said, Brother Jie, you should take a bath too. Li Jie looked at her and secretly let out a long breath before finally suppressing the restlessness in his heart. This Wang Zhining was not even wearing underwear, so she was obviously trying to seduce him. If it weren't for the fact that she hadn't passed her filial piety period yet, he would have pounced on her and executed her on the spot. Just be patient. Sooner or later, everyone will be his, so don't be too hasty. Li Jie also found a change of clothes from the suitcase and took them to the bathroom. After taking a hot bath, the fatigue on his body was wiped away, but his heart became more and more restless. Li Jie felt doubly tortured by the thought of sleeping with Wang Zhining in his arms tonight. When she came out of the bathroom, she saw Wang Zhining sitting on the sofa with her legs in her arms, watching TV programs absent-mindedly. Li Jie discovered that since the death of the Queen Mother, she liked to sit with her legs crossed, as if she could find a sense of security in this way. Hearing the movement, Wang Zhining turned around and said, "Brother Jie, you've finished taking a shower." "Well, the washing is done." Li Jie came to the small sofa and sat down next to her. Wang Zhining threw herself into his arms like a baby and hugged him. "Hey, don't move." Li Jie hugged her tightly and sighed softly in his heart. Why did she torture him like this? He admired the male protagonists in those novels who had a beautiful girl who wanted everything they wanted, and could still remain pregnant, but he didn't have the same skills as eunuchs. However, it seems that eunuchs also like women, otherwise why would there be such a word as sexual intercourse? In order to divert his attention, Li Jie turned his attention to the TV. The TV show was Dwelling. This TV series is very realistic, with discussions about house slaves, corrupt officials, mistresses, and the reality of love. However, Haiping and his wife are still qualified to be house slaves. They are very happy to be able to buy a shabby apartment for 380,000 yuan. 10 years later, they will not even be qualified to be house slaves in Shanghai. After watching it for a while, the plot progressed to an intimate scene between Haizhou and Song Siming. Watching the two people kissing each other on the TV, Li Jie picked up the remote control and changed the channel. MD tortures him even if he watches a TV series. However, seaweed is indeed quite beautiful, so it's no wonder Song Siming is attracted to it. Wang Zhining in his arms suddenly chuckled. "Why are you laughing?" Li Jie glanced at her with a smile. Wang Zhining looked charming and had charming eyes. She raised her head and whispered something in his ear. Li Jie listened and hugged her hard. Of course he thought about it, but she was still in her filial piety period. As if she guessed what he was thinking, Wang Zhining said softly, "Brother Jie, my period of filial piety has passed, you don't have to worry." The period of filial piety has passed? Li Jie thought about it and realized that he didn't have to pay so much attention to it now. The filial piety period was over for more than a week. I think his mother-in-law would understand if she had a spirit in heaven. This guy is so realistic. He used to call me aunt, but now he wants to bully his daughter, so he calls me mother-in-law. Seeing that he was still hesitant, Wang Zhining raised her head and whispered two more words into his ear. After hearing this, Li Jie couldn't help but look at her in surprise. He didn't expect her to say such rude words. However, the anger in her heart was completely aroused by her. If he could endure it any longer, he would no longer be a man. Li Jie suddenly picked up Wang Zhining by the waist and strode towards her bedroom. When he came to the bedroom, he gently put her on the bed and gently caressed her beautiful legs. While playing with them, he looked at her innocent and cute appearance. Li Jie couldn't help but think of a saying, the more beautiful women look under the lamp, the more beautiful they become. Under the illumination of the light, she is incomparably beautiful. She is a masterpiece from God, the most perfect work of art. Wang Zhining felt a little embarrassed by him and turned her head slightly. Li Jie smiled amusedly, leaned down and kissed her gently while appreciating her perfect work of art. He didn't want to progress too quickly with Wang Zhining, but the girls were so proactive, so it would be unmanly for him to shirk his refusal. What's more, if there are flowers that can be broken, they must be broken, but don't wait until there are no flowers. A girl's best years are only these few years, how could he let him down? The two were intimate for a while, and Wang Haining suddenly said, "Brother Jie, why don't you turn off the lights?" His eyes were so hot that it was hard for her to adapt. Li Jie chuckled lightly and kept moving. "It's better not to turn off the lights. You are so beautiful. Let me appreciate it." With that said, he lowered himself. "Beauty is just for admiring, how can you turn off the light? Working in vain is a waste of resources." Li Jie used to think that he had no artistic talent, but now he discovered that he actually loves art. "After more than an hour of art appreciation, I still have some unfinished ideas." If he hadn't been worried about Wang Haining's injury, he would definitely have appreciated it for a while longer. What's more, art can indeed cultivate sentiment. After the appreciation, he felt that his spiritual state immediately improved. A sheet stained with blood and stained was thrown aside. Li Jie leaned on the bed contentedly, lovingly hugging the sweaty Wang Haining and caressing her delicate body. Wang Haining's innocent and pretty face was full of tiredness, her brows were slightly furrowed, as if she was in pain, and she fell asleep in Li Jie's arms. These days, she has been immersed in the grief of the death of her relatives, and has long been exhausted physically and mentally. How can she bear the torment of Li Jie? In fact, Li Jie was very aware of Wang Haining's physical condition and did not want to bully her too much. However, Wang Haining seemed to be venting her emotions and fought with all her strength, so he had to passively accept the fight. He felt distress seeing her tormenting him like this. Li Jie lowered his head and kissed her lips tenderly. "Brother Jie," Wang Haining reluctantly opened her eyes and smiled. Still called Brother Jie, Li Jie sounded a little unhappy. "Forgot what I asked you to shout just now." When Wang Haining heard this, she thought of something and her pretty face turned red. She bit her lip and hesitantly shouted, "Husband." Why is her face red? Because not only did she call her husband, she also said a lot of nonsense and embarrassing things. Li Jie listened and smiled with satisfaction. Then, as if he remembered something, he said, "Haining, do you still want to continue acting?" Continue acting? When Wang Haining heard this, she couldn't help but feel a little surprised. It is impossible to say that Wang Haining does not want to come back. After all, she really likes acting. She didn't expect that Li Jie would suddenly agree to her comeback, and she subconsciously wanted to agree. But when she thought of something, she suddenly hesitated. Li Jie looked at Wang Haining without saying anything more, waiting for her to make a decision. He just announced that he had completely hidden her more than 2 months ago, and letting her come back so soon seems like a slap in the face. But as the leader of the company, what he has to do is to set rules for his employees, rather than letting the rules restrict himself. He can hide whoever he wants to hide, and praise whoever he wants to praise. Wang Haining is now his lover. Who dares to question his desire to flatter her? Besides, she had just lost a loved one, and her mood would only get lower if she was alone. She had something to do, and when she got busy, she had no time to think too much. As time went by, she got over the pain of bereavement. Wang Haining thought for a while, made up her mind, raised her head and said, "Brother Jie, I have thought about it carefully and don't want to be an actor anymore." It's not that she really doesn't want to be an actor, but for her, staying with Li Jie is the most important thing. There are so many girls around Li Jie, and she doesn't have many opportunities to get along with him. If she wants to be an actor again, it will take 3 or 4 months once she joins a group to film, and she won't have many opportunities to be with him. This was intolerable to her. Now she just wants to be with him every day, even if he is not a celebrity. Li Jie listened and nodded, seemingly not surprised. "Since you don't want to continue acting, then come and be my personal secretary." Now his personal secretary is Huo Menjian, but after all, Huo Menjian is not his woman and is not fully qualified to work as a personal secretary. And Wang Haining is very suitable. She is pure, beautiful, and has temperament. She is eye-catching to be around. This also fulfilled her wish, she could see him every day. Brother Jie, you want me to be your personal secretary? Wang Haining was extremely surprised, but she couldn't believe it. Li Jie smiled and said, why, you don't want to? I do, of course I do. Wang Haining kissed him several times excitedly. She became Li Jie's personal secretary, so she could be with him every day. Seeing how happy she was, Li Jie couldn't help but smile. You have to think clearly. As an actor, you can earn hundreds of thousands per play. Once you become popular, you can earn hundreds of thousands or even millions. As my personal secretary, you only get a salary of 7,000 to 8,000 a month. Then I'm willing to, Wang Haining said without hesitation. After a pause, she added, Brother Jie, I just want to be by your side. I don't want anything else. Can you do without anything? Li Jie didn't believe this at all. She just wants to be with him now, and when her goal is achieved, she will want more. Wang Haining couldn't wait. Brother Jie, when can I go to work? Li Jie glanced at her and said, you are injured now, so you should rest for a few days until the injury heals. I'm injured somewhere. Wang Haining didn't react until she was halfway through her words. Li Jie said what the injury was, and his pretty face turned red again. What kind of injury is this? I'll be fine after just one night's rest. I can go to work tomorrow. Brother Jie, can I accompany you to the company tomorrow? You'd better rest for 2 days. Seeing what she wanted to say, Li Jie said in a tone that left no room for doubt, be obedient. He didn't want her to limp to the company. After hearing this, Wang Haining bit her lip and said reluctantly, okay then. Li Jie smiled and held her in his arms again. You have to go to work, and you also need a suitable set of clothes. Tomorrow happens to be the weekend. I asked Ruanjing to accompany you to buy a suitable work clothes first, and then buy a transportation vehicle. You can go to work on Monday, the day after tomorrow. After hearing what he said, Wang Haining regained her smile. Good. Li Jie then said, it's not safe for you, a girl, to live by yourself. Let Ruanjing follow you from now on. She will protect your safety. He arranged bodyguards for Wang Haining not only to consider safety issues, but also to prevent him from suddenly getting a little environmentally friendly. As there are more and more women around him, Li Jie becomes more and more worried about this problem. He will not be so confident that all women will be devoted to him. Regardless of trust or distrust, he would treat them equally and lock them up. Sandalwood Villa. After discovering that Li Jie's Bentley Arnage RL was back, Xiao Jiao immediately ran downstairs excitedly. They haven't seen each other for more than a week, and she really misses Li Jie. But after waiting for a while, Li Jie was not seen, only Ruanjing walked in. Xiao Jiao couldn't help but ask, Xiaojing, where are you, Mr. Li? Didn't you come back together? Ruanjing glanced at Xiao Jiao and found it difficult to speak. Mr. Li said, he has something to do and won't go back to the villa tonight. Not coming back, Xiao Jiao became angry upon hearing this. He suddenly ran away for more than a week and refused to go home when he came back. Is something wrong? I think he is fascinated by some vixen. Xiaojing, tell me the truth, what did he do? Facing Xiao Jiao's questioning, Ruanjing showed a very embarrassed expression on her face. Although Li Jie didn't ask her to keep it secret, she couldn't reveal her boss's secrets privately. Okay, Xiao Jiao, please don't embarrass Xiaojing. She can't reveal the boss's privacy. The person who spoke was Zhou Ziyu, who came out of the room at some point. Not only Zhou Ziyu came out, but Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi also came down from the second floor. Xiao Jiao turned around, glanced at Zhou Ziyu, and said angrily, Zhou Fox, what does this have to do with you? Having said that, she didn't embarrass Ruanjing anymore. Zhou Ziyu looked at Ruanjing and said warmly, Xiaojing, have you, Mr. Li, gone to Ziwan Villa? This time Ruanjing did not hesitate. No. She can say this. Zhou listened thoughtfully and said, I understand, Xiaojing, go and rest. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 425. He didn't go to Lu Yufi's place. Xiao Qiao seemed to be talking to someone, but also seemed to be talking to himself. Zhou shook her head lightly, it's definitely not Lu Yufi. Shen Xian came over and said, he has been sending a lot of text messages on his phone lately, something is wrong. It seems that a new vixen has appeared. Xiao Qiao said this with a bit of gritted teeth. Her patience had almost reached its limit. Li Jie was simply insatiable. Not long after he hooked up with Lu Yufi, he hooked up with another in the blink of an eye. How many women would he need to be satisfied? He's really not afraid that he'll be too busy, right? Xiao Qiao turned to look at Zhou. Zhou Fox, do you know who that vixen is? Zhou glanced at her and just shook his head lightly, saying nothing. She was not worried about Lu Yufi's threat, but she was very wary of this new love rival. She had never seen Li Jie be so interested in a girl. Although Zhou didn't know who this new love rival was, she had a vague guess in her heart. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but think of that ominous dream again. If it were her, she would indeed look a lot like Lu Yufi. Early the next morning, when Li Jie woke up, he saw Wang Zhining nestled in his arms, holding him tightly. Her beautiful eyes are slightly closed, her hair is like a waterfall, and her sleeping face is peaceful, pure, and beautiful. The quilt only covers her armpits, revealing her white and smooth shoulders, and one of her long, fair, and beautiful legs stretches out of the quilt and rests on Li Jie's body. Li Jie looked at her as if he was admiring a perfect artist's work. He wanted to protect her but also wanted to bully her wantonly. He couldn't help lowering his head and started to kiss her, and his hands began to move. Soon, Wang Zhining, who was sleeping soundly, woke up because of his troubles. Brother Jie, her beautiful eyes were half opened and half closed, and she responded to him awkwardly. The two were intimate for a while, then Li Jie let go of Wang Zhining and stroked her head gently. Almost half an hour later, Wang Zhining suddenly stood up, picked up a bath towel and wrapped it around her body, and hurried to the bathroom to wash up. Li Jie lay on the bed for a while longer before getting up and starting to get dressed. After he got dressed, Wang Zhining came back after washing up. Just after washing her face, her pretty face looked whiter and more moist, and her slightly damp hair was draped casually behind her like a waterfall. Li Jie glanced at her, chuckled and helped her straighten her hair. There is nothing to eat at home. When Ruanjing comes, we will go out to eat together. Yeah, Wang Zhining nodded coquettishly. Then, without caring about Li Jie, she took off her bath towel and changed clothes in front of him. She opened the closet, first took out a set of underwear and put on a pair of underwear, then put on a bottoming shirt, jeans, and a coat. Watching Wang Zhining put on clothes, Li Jie had a pleasant feeling. She, Zhou, and Lu Yufi can all be said to be gifted in clothes. They look good in anything they wear, even if they wear a sack piece, they will still look good. The true beauty cannot be concealed. After Wang Zhining got dressed, Li Jie took out his wallet, pulled out a bank card and handed it to her. There are more than 300,000 yuan in this card. You can use it to buy a mobility scooter. Brother Jie, you don't have to give me money. I have money to buy a car. Wang Zhining refused. But Li Jie didn't allow her to refuse and put the bank card directly into her hand. Be obedient and take it as you are told. You are my woman, and I should raise you. This card also has a limit of 100,000, which is your monthly pocket money. You can buy whatever you want. Wang Zhining looked at the bank card in her hand, hesitated for a moment, and then put it away. Okay, Brother Jie, I'll take it. Li Jie smiled with satisfaction, stretched out his hand and hugged her into his arms. Now it's right. After a pause, he added, "I'll buy you a small, well-decorated apartment in 2 days. Your small rental house is too crude and unsafe." Wang Zhining leaned closely in his arms and snorted lightly. Li Jie did not intend to give Wang Zhining too many material things. Everyone has gains and losses, and no one can take advantage of everything. Since Wang Zhining wants to get more emotional feedback, she must get less materially. Otherwise, Xiao Qiao, Zhou Ziyu and the others would be unbalanced. The more women around him, the more Li Jie has to try to maintain a balance. Otherwise, once the balance is completely broken, he will be the one who suffers. After having breakfast outside with Wang Zhining and Ruanjing, Li Jie parted ways with them, got into the Bentley Arnage RL brought by Zhou Chao, and returned to Sandalwood Villa. When he returned to the villa, got off the car and walked into the living room, Li Jie saw Xiao Qiao, Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi sitting on the sofa, looking at him with scrutinizing eyes. Seeing them looking at each other eagerly, as if they were being interrogated by the four halls, Li Jie felt somewhat guilty. He is not afraid of them, but in order to take care of Wang Zhining these days, he has indeed neglected them. It was a concession that they could tolerate his flirting, but that didn't make him feel confident. Caring too much is the beginning of loss, and the same is true of not caring too much. Li Jie smiled flatteringly, "Qiao Bao, Xiao Yu, Guaguai, you are all here." They still stared at him carefully, and no one spoke to him. "What are you doing? Why aren't you talking?" Li Jie shamelessly came to sit next to them, hugged Xiao Qiao and Zhou Ziyu first, and then hugged Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi. Xiao Qiao said with a cold face, "You still know how to come back. I thought you had forgotten us all." Li Jie continued to smile apologetically, "How is it possible? Even if I forget myself, I can't forget you. You are the most important in my heart." Xiao Qiao snorted coldly, "Funny words." Li Jie looked at them one by one and said, "Okay, don't be angry. I know I have neglected you these days. I promise there won't be a next time. Please forgive me." Zhou Ziyu looked at him and said softly, "Husband, we are not angry because you ignored our feelings, but because you suddenly went out and didn't tell us what you were going to do. We are all worried." Xiao Qiao couldn't help but glance at Zhou Ziyu. This Zhou Fox was too cunning. They agreed that they would teach Li Jie a lesson together, but she pretended to be a good person again. Lu Kaiyu said, "Husband, you are the person in charge of a large group. You can't do things as you please. You didn't say hello and left suddenly, which made us very passive." Shen Xinyi also said, "Husband, what have you been doing these days?" Li Jie smiled and said, "Okay, next time what I am going to do, I will definitely tell you first and I won't hide it from you anymore." After a pause, he continued, "A friend of mine has passed away, and I have been helping her take care of her future these days." "Friend? Female friend?" Xiao Qiao's tone was sarcastic. "Li Jie, you are really good. You just hooked up with Lu Yufei with your front leg, and now you hook up with another one with your back leg." Zhou Ziyu said, "Husband, do we know your friend?" Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi also looked at him with questioning eyes. Li Jie looked at them, hesitated and said, "Actually, the one you all have met is Wang Zhining." "Wang Zhining?" When Xiao Qiao, Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi heard this, their faces showed surprise. Of course the four of them knew Wang Zhining. The other party was an artist that was highly praised by Cuckoo Entertainment. Not long ago, I heard that she was hidden by the company because she was in a private relationship. Who would have thought that she would hook up with Li Jie? "Qiao Bao, why are you looking at me like this?" Seeing Xiao Qiao's playful expression, Li Jie couldn't help but ask. Xiao Qiao sneered and said, "I asked you why you hid her in the snow before. It turns out you went into the house to hide her and kept her as your own." Regarding the artists under Cuckoo Entertainment, the ones who impressed her most were Luan Xiaolin and Wang Zhining. Luan Xiaolin is probably having an affair with this guy Li Jie. And Wang's Haining is the most beautiful one. Ahem, Li Jie coughed twice, feeling a little embarrassed. This Jiao Dengbao really didn't give him any face. Seeing Li Jie deflated, Shen Xian couldn't help but chuckle, and Lu Kaiu also had a smile on her face. Zhou Ziyu seemed to have thought of something, and was a little distracted. When she came back to her senses, she asked, "Husband, you said that a relative of Wang's Haining died. Who died?" After hearing this, Li Jie sighed softly and said, "It's her mother." Then he briefly told them about Wang's Haining. After hearing that Wang's Haining grew up in a single-parent family and depended on her mother, and now that her only relative had died in a car accident, Xiao Jiao, Shen Xinyi, and Lu Kaiu couldn't help showing sympathy and prejudice against her. And hostility have also been reduced a lot. Only Zhou Ziyu's expression remained unchanged, thoughtful. After finishing speaking, Li Jie paused and said, "So she is a girl who is alone and helpless, and I can't bear to sit back and do nothing." Xiao Jiao said with a half-smile, "So you are so sympathetic, but the objects of your sympathy are limited to pretty girls, right? Are you going to take care of me for the rest of your life? She has no way of repaying your kindness, so you can only pledge yourself to her." This Xiao Jiao really understands him. Ahem, Li Jie's face turned red and he could only cough twice more to cover up his embarrassment. Xiao Jiao shook his head lightly, and then said, "Forget it, I don't care about you, you are such a playboy. As I said, you must never let anyone in. Also, no matter how busy or tired you are outside, you must fulfill your obligations when you return home, never less." She deliberately emphasized the words how busy and tired she was. If you have the ability, just try your best to hook up, as long as you don't worry about being exhausted. I promise this is the last one. Li Jie looked like he was making a bet. After hearing what he said, Xiao Jiao, Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiu, and Shen Xinyi rolled their eyes in unison, as if to say, "I believe you." Seeing their reactions, Li Jie felt very embarrassed. Why did his family status suddenly decline? "Jiao Bao, what are you doing?" Li Jie noticed that Xiao Jiao was riding on him. "What?" Xiao Jiao smiled cutely. "Let you fulfill your obligations." Li Jie glanced at her, then at Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiu, Shen Xinyi, and the others. As their man, it's time for him to fulfill his obligations. Today he risked his life, dedicated himself to them, and died. Xiao Jiao added, "You also have to make up for the debts you owed over the past week or so." "Okay," Li Jie agreed with a smile. "I'll work overtime to make up for what I owe you in the past half-month." Xiao Jiao smiled and shook his head, "No, I have to make it up today." "Make up for it all at once today?" The smile on Li Jie's face froze. She really wanted him to die. However, if you only have to deal with Xiao Jiao, it won't be a big problem. Thinking this, he looked at Zhou Ziyu and said, "Xiao, you are so considerate." Zhou Ziyu smiled lightly, "Hubby, you have to treat everyone equally." He looked at Lu Kaiu again, "Xiao, I know you." Lu Kaiu also smiled and said, "Husband, you must treat everyone equally." He finally looked at Shen Xinyi, "Good boy, you are the best." Shen Xian held back her laughter and said, "Husband, you have to treat everyone equally. The four of them are going to join forces to murder her husband. After so many days, the company must have accumulated a lot of matters. I will go and deal with them first, and I will accompany you when I come back in the evening." Li Jie said, picked up Xiao Jiao from his body, put it aside, and then stood up to run away. However, before he took 2 steps, he was caught by them. "Hey, don't be like this, please let me go." Even the scumbag Li Jie is afraid of a day. Wang's Haining got up early in the morning on February 1st after washing and having breakfast. She put on a secretary outfit and took Ruanjing out of the house. After going downstairs and arriving at the parking lot, Wang Zhaining took out the car key from her handbag and pressed it. The lights of a white Audi A3 suddenly flashed twice. She went to a Ford store with Ruan Jing to buy this Audi A3 yesterday, and it cost less than 300,000. Wang Zhaining opened the door and was about to get in the car. At this time, an aunt who got up early to exercise came over. "Little girl, are you new here? I've never seen you before." Wang Zhaining smiled at the other party and said, "Well, I'm the new tenant." The aunt looked at her and said, "The little girl is quite beautiful. Are you coming to Shanghai to go to school or to work?" "Going to school, but I'm already in my 3rd year and starting my internship." "Is that so? Do you have a boyfriend? How about aunt introduce one to you? With your conditions so good, it's not difficult to find a good boy from our Shanghai market." Wang Zhaining declined and said, "Auntie, thank you. But no, I have a boyfriend." The aunt asked, "Do you have a boyfriend? Is he a local?" "No." "Hey, you girls from out of town, if you find a boy from out of town, it will be very difficult to buy a house and stay in Shanghai. Why don't you think about it and find a boy with good conditions in Shanghai?" "Auntie, no need." Wang Zhaining was a little impatient. She glanced at the time on her watch and said, "Auntie, I'm almost late for work, so I won't tell you more." After saying that, she got in the car. Ruan Jing glanced at the enthusiastic aunt and said, "Auntie, my cousin's boyfriend is in pretty good condition. He has several houses in Shanghai, so don't worry too much." After saying that, she also got into the passenger seat. The aunt's face was a little ugly. When she saw the Audi A3 driving far away, she muttered, "No matter how good the conditions in other places are, they are not as good as our local ones. This little girl really has no vision." In the car, Ruan Jing glanced at Wang Zhaining and said with a smile, "Zhaining, this aunt probably wants to introduce her son to you. Yesterday afternoon, when we came back, I saw her walking with a young boy. The boy was stunned when he saw you." Wang Zhaining just smiled and did not answer. She only has Li Jie in her heart now. No matter how good other boys are, she doesn't care about him. "I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn." Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 426. 30 or 40 minutes later, the Audi A3 arrived at Zhangjiang High-Tech Park and drove into an office building. The car stopped in the underground parking lot. Wang Zhaining and Ruan Jing got out of the car together and walked to the elevator. After walking not far, I saw a dark-skinned, tall, and strong boy and a woman in her 20s, exquisitely dressed and with good temperament, getting out of a white BMW together. Wang Zhaining knew this boy. He had seen him before on the set of Unexpected Realm. He seemed to be named He Zhigang, and he was Li Jie's classmate. She nodded to the two of them as a greeting. He Zhigang was very surprised to see Wang Zhaining. At a dormitory dinner party a while ago, he heard Yang Hao gossip that she had offended the company and was hidden. He looks quite haggard now. "Zhaining, are you also interning here?" He thought Wang Zhaining was interning at another company in this office building. "Well, I just came to work in the company." Wang Zhaining nodded and said. Ding Li was next to He Zhigang. Ding Li looked at Wang Zhaining with interest. This girl was simply more beautiful than a celebrity. I don't know how He Zhigang knew each other, but it seems that the relationship between the two is not familiar. The three of them walked into the elevator with the others, and soon the elevator reached the floor where the marketing department of Qwen Technology was located. After He Zhigang and Ding Li walked out of the elevator together, he subconsciously turned around and glanced at Wang Zhaining, feeling a little confused. "There are no companies further up." Ding Li glanced at him and said, "Is that girl just now your friend?" "Not really friends, just acquaintances. She was an artist at Cuckoo Entertainment before, and I was on the same crew as her." He Zhigang did not mention Wang Zhaining being hidden. No wonder, Ding Li looked surprised after hearing this. "Why, He Zhigang asked. Ding Li smiled and said, the relationship between that girl and Mr. Li is extraordinary. Seeing the look of surprise on He Zhigang's face, she continued, didn't you recognize it? The girl next to her is Mr. Li's bodyguard. He Zhigang was a little confused after hearing this. Didn't it mean that Wang Zhining offended Li Jie and was hidden in the snow? But he soon realized that the next floor up was the president's office. It turns out that Wang Zhining works in the president's office. This kid Li Jie is really capable, and he has got another beautiful woman. Still hiding in the snow? It's just forcing other girls to submit. It seems that as long as they are beautiful girls around him, he will not let them go. Thinking of this, He Zhigang couldn't help but think of Huo Menjian again. Will Li Jie really let her go? When the elevator went up to another floor, Wang Zhining and Ruan Jing also got out of the elevator together and walked to the president's office. Employees coming and going, especially male employees, couldn't help but take a second look after seeing Wang Zhining. Such beautiful girls are so rare. Arriving at the door of the CEO's office, Ruan Jing stopped. Wang Zhining knocked on the door and walked into the office. When Wang Zhining walked in, the secretaries Zhuang Qian and Zheng Shan were a little surprised. The most indispensable thing in the president's office is beauties. Bai Wei, Lu Kaiyu, and newcomer Zhang Wenjun are all beauties. Slightly inferior, Zhuang Qian, Zheng Shan, Lu Yi and others are also the beauties of the cream of the crop. But compared with this girl, even the most beautiful Bai Wei is slightly inferior. Zhang Wenjun stood up and said, Miss, who are you looking for? She is a receptionist and mainly receives visitors and guests. Wang Zhining looked around and said, I am a new employee, come here to report. Upon hearing this, Zhuang Qian stood up and walked to her side with a smile, Zhining, right? I am Zhuang Qian, the director of the president's office. Mr. Li has already told me about your matter. You are welcome to join the president's office. As she spoke, she stretched out her hand. Wang Zhining quickly stretched out her hand and shook hands with the other party. Hello, Director Zhuang, I will ask for your continued care in the future. Zhuang Qian looked at Wang Zhining and smiled, we take care of each other. This girl is extraordinary. She can go from being a little star to being the personal secretary of a big boss. I don't know what you paid for this. With this in mind, she turned around and looked at everyone and said, this is Wang Zhining, the new secretary. The affairs secretary is the personal secretary, who is mainly responsible for the daily life of the president, trivial matters, and provides all-round services to the president. After listening to Zhuang Qian's words, many of the secretaries in the office looked surprised and looked at Wang Zhining curiously. Isn't this the little star who was hidden by the boss? How come he became the boss's personal secretary in the blink of an eye? Zhuang Qian then said to Wang Zhining, Mr. Li is not here yet, I will help you with your induction first. The onboarding procedure is very simple and only takes more than 20 minutes to complete. Seeing that Li Jie hadn't arrived yet, Zhuang Qian temporarily arranged a place for Wang Zhining. The secretaries in the office looked at Wang Zhining frequently, full of curiosity about her change of identity, and they didn't know how many things they had guessed in their hearts. The position of personal secretary is reserved for the boss's lover. Xiaoqiao, Lu Kaiyu, Shen Xinyi, and only Huo Menjian are special cases. This Wang Zhining doesn't look like a special case. Zhang Wenjun looked at Wang Zhining with some hostility. She had always thought of replacing Huo Menjian as Li Jie's personal secretary, but she didn't expect that Wang Zhining would show up halfway. It wasn't until almost 10 o'clock that Li Jie finally arrived. He was rarely late, but he got up late today, mainly because he was too tired last night, and Xiaoqiao, Zhou Ziyu, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xinyi squeezed him to death. Although he did not die, he did give his best. It felt like I had been doing physical work all night. I woke up with backache in the morning and was very tired. No, what he does is physical work. Seeing Li Jie and Lu Kai walking in together, more than a dozen people including Zhuang Qian, Bai Wei, Wang Zhaining, Huo Menjian, and Zhang Wenjun stood up. Mr. Li. Wang Zhaining subconsciously wanted to call Brother Jie, but she quickly reacted and followed Zhuang Qian and the others to call Mr. Li. Li Jie was depressed, but Lu Kai was full of energy and bright, making her look even more beautiful. But after seeing Wang Zhaining, her expression suddenly changed. Zhuang Qian glanced at Wang Zhaining and said to Li Jie, Mr. Li, Secretary Wang's entry procedures have been completed, but the seats have not been arranged yet. Li Jie listened, nodded, glanced at Wang Zhaining and said, just arrange an office for me. It will be more convenient for work. The secretaries in the office looked at Wang Zhaining with increasingly strange eyes. Sharing an office with the boss is a treatment that Xiao Qiao, Lu Kaiyu, and Shen Xinyi did not have before. How could this Wang Zhaining be so virtuous? Lu Kaiyu glanced at Li Jie and then at Wang Zhaining, her expression even worse. Soon, a staff member moved a new desk and placed it next to Li Jie's desk in the back room. After work, Wang Zhaining came to Li Jie's desk, sat on his lap, raised her head and offered him a kiss. She missed him after not seeing him for a day. With the warm fragrant nephrite and beautiful woman in his arms, Li Jie's heart was extremely pure and he had no evil thoughts at all. For a man in the sage's time, no matter how beautiful the beauty is, that's just the way it is. Fortunately, Wang Zhaining didn't want him to fulfill his obligations. She was satisfied as long as she could get tired of being by his side. Her injury is not completely healed yet. Li Jie hugged Wang Zhaining while picking up the documents on the table and reading them. He decided not to go back to the villa tonight. If Xiao Qiao and the others asked him to fulfill his obligations again, he would really die. Go to Lu Yufei's place to take refuge, no, she can't go there either. He hasn't acted with her in more than a week. How about going to Wang Zhaining's place? Just when Li Jie was worried, Lu Kaiyu opened the office door and walked in. Seeing Wang Zhaining in Li Jie's arms, she smiled playfully and said, Mr. Li, you really know how to enjoy it. The vinegar bottle has been turned over again. Li Jie sighed softly in his heart and asked Wang Zhaining to get up from him, and he also stood up. Xiao Yu, you're here, he stretched out his hand to hug Lu Kaiyu over. Lu Kaiyu dodged, Mr. Li, this is the office, please respect yourself. She's still in high spirits. Li Jie smiled, reached out again, and hugged Lu Kaiyu into his arms regardless of Lu Kaiyu's struggle and resistance. Why are you so angry all of a sudden that you don't even want to call your husband? Why is she angry? When Lu Kaiyu heard this, he became even more angry. Li Jie is just asking questions knowingly. He arranged for Wang Zhaining to be his personal secretary, but bypassed her and directly ordered Zhuang Qian to do it without even informing her, completely keeping her in the dark. What did he mean? She is his first secretary. Seeing Li Jie and Lu Kaiyu flirting there, Wang Zhaining bit her lip, feeling sour, astringent, and uncomfortable. She knew that there were many women around Li Jie, and she was mentally prepared. But when she saw the scene with her own eyes, she still couldn't help but feel jealous. Li Jie coaxed Lu Kaiyu for a while before he finally coaxed her, at least on the surface. When it comes to arranging Wang Zhaining to be a personal secretary, we can only get on the bus first and make up for it later. No, it's about killing first and then telling the story later. If we discuss it with Lu Kaiyu and the others, the four of them will definitely oppose it unanimously. 3 of the 4 of them have served as his personal secretaries, except Zhou Ziyu. Both Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xian were promoted from private secretaries. This position can be said to be a preparatory position for lovers to become full-time employees. How could the 4 of them agree to Wang Zhaining taking this position again? Li Jie hugged Lu Kaiyu, glanced at Wang Zhaining, who was obviously a bit disgusted, and reached out to hug her into his arms. Xiao Yu, Zhaining, you two should have known each other for a long time, so I won't introduce you further. On behalf of Li Jie, Lu Kaiyu visited the Uncanny Realm team and had already met Wang Zhaining. Wang Zhaining had also known for a long time that Lu Kaiyu was one of Li Jie's women and the most powerful secretary in the company. Zhaining, Xiaoyu is your senior at work. You should respect her and ask her for advice. In life, the same is true, do you understand? Lu Kaiyu listened to Li Jie's words, and the more she listened, the more she felt something was wrong. He doesn't really intend to make this Wang Zhaining a regular employee, does he? Although she herself is in the upper position, it does not mean that she can accept those who come after her. What's more, this Wang Zhaining is so favored now. It would be even more amazing if she becomes a regular person again. I'm afraid he will become the next Zhou Ziyu. Lu Kaiyu didn't stay long and went out quickly. Before leaving, she took a deep look at Wang Zhaining. This girl was definitely a strong rival. After returning to his seat and sitting down, Lu Kaiyu thought for a while, took out his mobile phone and sent a text message to Zhou Ziyu. Although she had the worst relationship with Zhou Ziyu, if something really happened, the only person she could think of to discuss it with was Zhou Ziyu. Neither Xiaoqiao nor Shen Xinyi was able to make plans. Jiangning Road. Zhou Ziyu was shopping with some high school classmates who were visiting Shanghai. She was wearing a white mink coat. She was luxurious, fashionable, charming, and sexy, and she was charming. Several girls gathered around her, complimenting her like stars. They all know that Zhou Ziyu's boyfriend Li Jie is the president of Kudong Group, a super rich man on the Forbes wealth list. They were all jealous that Zhou Ziyu had found a boyfriend like Li Jie. As for jealousy, they couldn't be jealous anymore. They are not as good looking as Zhou Ziyu, nor are they as lucky as she is, so they dare not expect to find a super rich man like Li Jie, who is worth more than 3 billion. When I came to Shanghai this time, I saw Zhou Ziyu driving a Lamborghini costing 4 to 5 million yuan, a bag costing hundreds of thousands, a coat costing hundreds of thousands, and even the bodyguards drove BMW X5s. I also saw what it means to be wealthy. The girl who was originally from a humble background and was looked down upon by others has now flown to the branches and become a phoenix. Well done, it would be better to marry well. Tsuyu, when I saw Mr. Li at the last party, I felt that he had an unusual temperament. That's right. Ziyu, you and Mr. Li are both too low-key. Ziyu, you have such a good taste in finding a good boyfriend like Mr. Li. Their visit to Shanghai this time was secondary, the main reason was to have a relationship with Zhou Ziyu. Now that their junior year of college is coming to an end, they all have to do internships and find jobs. For girls with ordinary family backgrounds, the boss of a large group, a rich man worth 3 billion, is the most powerful person they can come into contact with. How can you miss such a relationship? This is the reality. If you are rich and powerful, everyone will look down upon you. If you have no money and power, even your closest relatives will look down on you. Poor and lowly families are full of sorrow, and there are many complaints and calculations. Money determines honor and inferiority. When people are in trouble, they never see their relatives. Listening to the compliments and flattery from several classmates, Zhou Ziyu disagreed and even found it a bit funny. At the beginning, a few of them were talking and belittling her behind her back. Now that she has turned over, they come over to compliment and flatter her, just to get some credit. What a beautiful thought. A girl thought of something. Ziyu, it's a good thing you weren't with Zhou Yiyang back then. Did you know that Zhou Yiyang's family is bankrupt? The smile on Zhou Ziyu's face remained unchanged, but she was very unhappy in her heart. What does she mean? She said that Shen Yu worships money and only recognizes money, right? Don't speak short words in front of people. It is undeniable that when Zhou Ziyu chose Li Jie, money was involved to a large extent. Therefore, she is now particularly disgusted with people saying that she worships money and is with Li Jie just for money. And she firmly believed that if she could choose again, Even if Li Jie had no money, she would still choose him. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanjie. Chapter 427. A girl said with emotion, Zhou Yiyang's clothing factory closed down. I heard that his parents are still getting divorced. He is also miserable. Another girl said, Chen Lin always chased Zhou Yiyang before, but when she saw that the Zhou family was bankrupt, she immediately changed her face. She is really powerful. Zhou Ziyu listened to their discussion without saying a word. For her, when they first met in high school, the boy who had a sunny personality, handsome appearance, a well-off family background, and was friendly to others, who made her both excited and felt inferior, was just a distant stranger. The initial heartbeat was just an illusion, and the perfect Zhou Yiyang was just her imagination. In reality, Zhou Yiyang is just a weak, independent man who lives under the control of his mother. Zhou Ziyu doesn't even want to think back to her time in high school. That time left her with few good memories, just like that time when she was a child. What she recalls most is the time when she and Li Jie returned to her hometown. During those days, there was no Xiao Qiao, no Lu Kaiyu, no Shen Xinyi, and none of those messy women. Only she and Li Jie depended on each other. This is the happiest time in her life. If she could choose, she would be willing to give up her current. However, life is not bad now. Beep, the vibrating sound of her cell phone interrupted her thoughts. Zhou Ziyu took out her mobile phone from her handbag and took a look. It was a text message from Lu Kaiyu. Looking at the content of the text message, her expression remained unchanged, but her heart tightened. That Wang Haining turned out to be Li Jie's personal secretary. Zhou Ziyu couldn't help but think of that ominous dream again, and the sense of urgency in her heart became even stronger. She must get her status as soon as possible so that she can take care of everything calmly. But Li Jie still kept his illness under wraps and avoided medical treatment. Zhou Ziyu now doubted that there might be something wrong with Li Jie's health. Otherwise, if he was torturing them like animals, why wouldn't any of them get pregnant? In the CEO's office, Li Jie, who was reading a financial statement, suddenly felt his nose itchy and couldn't help but sneeze. Wang Haining, who was sitting next to him, couldn't help but ask, Brother Jie, do you have a cold? Li Jie raised his hand and rubbed his nose. It's okay. Which little lover misses him? Or is there someone talking bad about him behind his back? Tsuyu, what are you thinking about? Seeing that Zhou Ziyu was distracted while holding her mobile phone, a girl called her. Nothing. Zhou Ziyu smiled and put the phone back into the bag. Let's go over there and have a look. She took them into a large shopping mall and wandered to the Chanel counter. As soon as Zhou Ziyu and others entered the store, the sales lady's eyes immediately brightened and she greeted them enthusiastically. Miss Zhou, you are here. Zhou Ziyu hummed slightly and looked around. This store mainly sells clothes, shoes, bags, and small accessories. A batch of new clothes have just arrived in our store. Why don't you take a look? The sales lady said with a smile. This is a big customer. He only buys things based on whether he likes them or not. He never cares about the price. If you serve him well, your performance this month will be stable. Okay, Zhou Ziyu did not refuse. I followed the sales lady to the clothing area and listened to her introduction to several clothes, but I didn't like them all. The styles of these clothes were too bright and gaudy, and she felt a bit ugly. For Zhou Ziyu, the brand is not important, the most important thing is whether you like it or not. She wandered around and came to the bag section. She found a white handbag that was pretty good and matched the coat she was wearing, so she picked it up. That's it? 56,100 yuan. Several girls were a little stunned when they heard the price quoted by the sales lady. Zhou Ziyu didn't care, as if what he heard was not 56,000, but 56. She now has 300,000 yuan in pocket money every month, and she has earned 2 to 3 million more in royalties this year. In addition, Li Jie often asked her if she had enough money to spend, and wrote her checks, often worth millions. So Zhou Ziyu really doesn't care about money now. He can buy whatever he wants without looking at the price at all. Even if she runs out of money, she can just act coquettishly with Li Jie in bed. As soon as she opened her mouth, Li Jie never hesitated and gave her as much money as possible. One purchase of cosmetics costs more than 100,000 yuan, there are too many clothes and shoes to fit in, a dazzling array of high-end jewelry, and a cabinet full of luxury bags. She really spends whatever money she has. Zhou Ziyu also understood that Li Jie really didn't care about their money. The more they spent, the happier he became, and she became less reserved in front of him. After coming out of the Chanel counter, Zhou Ziyu and the others went to the cosmetics counter again. At the Dior counter, Zhou Ziyu chose a small cosmetic product such as eyebrow pencil, lipstick, and powder as a gift for each of the girls. They are not expensive, the price is around 300 or 400. Zhou Ziyu was not willing to give them anything that was too expensive, thinking that they were not worthy of it. After receiving the small gifts, several girls were extremely happy and expressed their gratitude one after another. If this gift was given by ordinary people, they wouldn't care too much, but Zhou Ziyu is the girlfriend of a super rich man, so it makes them feel particularly proud. Seeing that it was noon, Zhou Ziyu and a few girls left the pedestrian street and found a luxury restaurant for dinner. Several girls offered to treat them. Zhou Ziyu did not refuse. She is not someone who is taken advantage of and will not waste money on someone who is not worthy of her just for the sake of face. After finishing the meal, Zhou Ziyu took these cheap classmates to Beijing Mansion to sit for a while. Xiao Qiao and Shen Xinyi now live in a villa, rarely return to the apartment, and there is no risk of a car crash. When they arrived at the Beijing Mansion, the girls were completely shocked when they saw the 360 square meter, extremely luxurious, magnificent, palace-like mansion. Time flies and the weekend arrives. The 6th is a small year, and it is also the day when Kudong Group holds its second annual meeting. Employees have been looking forward to this annual meeting for a long time. Li Jie had already announced that he would spend 10 million out of his own pocket to give out red envelopes to everyone at the annual meeting. It was around 4 p.m. in an old community in Pudong New District. The four girls, Huo Lily, Cao Xiaoqian, Song Xiona, and Tan Hui, were all busy putting on makeup and dressing up. They took out their best clothes and put on their makeup with great care. Tonight's annual meeting will be attended by everyone from the top management of the group to ordinary employees. For such an important occasion, as long as it is a girl, who doesn't want to dress up brightly and become the focus of everyone's attention? Cao Xiaoqian was the quickest to dress up. She changed into better clothes and simply put on makeup. She has a bit of a tomboyish personality and doesn't like makeup very much. Song Xiona gestured with a skirt on her body and glanced at Cao Xiaoqian. Xiaoqian, is this what you're wearing? Cao Xiaoqian looked at herself and asked, is there any problem? Song Xiona couldn't help but said, of course there is a problem, you are wearing too casually. Cao Xiaoqian shook her head disapprovingly, I think it's good, but aren't you afraid of the cold wearing a skirt in winter? Song Xiona smiled and said, it doesn't matter. I'll just wear a down jacket outside. It won't be cold in the venue. At this time, Huo Lily opened the bedroom door and walked in. She was wearing a one-piece down jacket and obviously a skirt. Xiao Na, please hurry up, it's almost 5 o'clock. Lily, the annual meeting doesn't start at 6 o'clock. Song Xiona still acted slowly. We can get a good spot if we go early. Huo Lily urged again, Xiao Na, hurry up. Okay, I understand. Song Xiona agreed, but her movements were slow. I heard that Li Jie will give out 10 million red envelopes tonight. It's really generous. I wonder how little we can get. It's not likely to be too many. We are just interns and cannot be compared with regular employees, CAO Xiaoqian said. Be content, it's good to get some. That's Kudong Group. If we were in other companies, it would be impossible to give red envelopes to interns like us, Huo Lily said. After a pause, she continued, by the way, I can see Tsuyu tonight. When I called her last time, I heard she said she would also attend the annual meeting. Song Xiona said in a very emotional tone, Tsuyu's life is really good. She can find a boyfriend like Li Jie, and she is on the rich list in her early 20s, with a net worth of more than 3 billion. CAO Xiaoqian said with a smile, is that what Xiu's destiny is? People earn it based on their ability, but Xiaoqiao's is. She stopped suddenly, stopped talking, and looked towards the door. Huo Lily and Song Xiona followed her gaze and saw Tan Hui walking in. Under Huo Lily's urging, Song Xiona dressed up in a hurry, and the four of them went out together. Chen Wenjing and her boyfriend Lin Jing met at the gate of the community where they arrived. The six of them took 2 cars and headed to the Pudong Shangri-La Hotel, where the annual meeting was held. Half an hour later, the taxi arrived at the Shangri-La Hotel. After the 6 people got off the car, they found that the entrance to the hotel was very lively. One after another, brightly dressed men and women got out of taxis and private cars and walked into the hotel in groups. The 6 of them also followed the flow of people into the hotel, and under the guidance of the waiter, they came to the conference hall where the annual meeting was held. The conference hall is very large, almost 2,000 square meters. At this time, the conference hall was packed with people, there seemed to be thousands of people. CAO Xiaoqian sighed, I didn't know there were so many people in our group. Huo Lily said, these people haven't arrived yet. The entire group has 1,500 to 600 people, and only half of them have arrived now. Under the guidance of a staff member, the 6 of them came to a seat slightly behind the right side of the venue, where all interns were seated. I saw many familiar people, including He Zhigang, He Lu, Zhang Qian, Zhang Yu, etc. Linzi, come and sit here, He Zhigang greeted Lin Jing. Lin Jing glanced at his girlfriend Chen Wenjing, and then said to Huo Lily and the 4 of them, how about we go over and sit down? Huo Lily and the 4 of them looked at each other and nodded. The 6 of them came to He Zhigang's table and sat down. In addition to He Zhigang, there was also He Lu and another boy on the table. Coincidentally, at another table next to it, Xiao Qiao's roommates Zhang Qian, Zhang Yu, Bai Wei, Lu Li, and Shen Man were sitting. The table is filled with nuts, sugar, dried meat, and other snacks, as well as fruits and drinks. He Zhigang, Lin Jing, Huo Lily, Cao Xiaoqian, Song Xiona, and Tan Hui chatted while eating. Huo Lily and the others heard from He Zhigang that another boy named Lu Ji was from Shanghai International Studies University. Not long after, the venue suddenly became commotion, and everyone looked towards the entrance. What's going on? Many people asked. It's Lu Yufei here. Hearing the name, there was an immediate sensation, and people stood up and looked towards the door. He Zhigang, Lu Ji, and Huo Lily also stood up, but Lin Jing, Chen Wenjing, and Tan Hui did not move. However, after watching for a long time, they could only vaguely see Lu Yufei's back. After sitting down again, He Zhigang said, will Lu Yufei also perform on stage soon? He can also be regarded as a casual fan of Lu Yufei. It's probably very possible. Lu Ji paused and sighed, it's good to be in a big company, and you can also see Lu Yufei perform. He Lu glanced at him and He Zhigang, smiled, and said, do you guys all like Lu Yufei? It's not that I like it, it's just. He Zhigang was halfway through his sentence and didn't know what to say. Lu Ji responded, I just think she's pretty. He Zhigang listened and nodded, yes, that's what it means. Under Ding Li's words and deeds, he is obviously not as cautious when facing girls now. Huo Lily smiled and said, I also like Lu Yufei and think she is very beautiful. Cao Xiaoqian said, I think Lu Yufei is famous, and in terms of appearance, Tsuyu is just better than her. At this time, a pleasant female voice came from behind, Xiaoqian, thank you for the compliment. He's Higang. Huo Lily and the others turned around and saw Zhou walking over with a reserved smile. It's true that whoever arrives will arrive. Tsuyu, you're here. Huo Lily, Cao Xiaoqian, and Song Xiona were all surprised. Lu Ji, who had never seen Zhou before, was stunned by the surprise. In fact, not only him, but also many people nearby were attracted to Zhou and were amazed. Zhou came to the table and sat down next to Huo Lily, with Tan Hui on the other side. Let me sit with you for a while. Who is this? Lu Ji looked at Zhou and couldn't help but ask. He just heard Cao Xiaoqian say that Zhu's appearance is no worse than Lu Yufei's, and he actually sneered at her. Now that I have really seen Tsuyu, I have to admit that this girl's appearance is really no worse than Lu Yufei's, or even worse. This is Zhou, our friend. He also studied at Hongqian Normal University before, and now he has transferred to Shanghai Normal University. Huo Lily did not mention the relationship between Zhou and Li Jie. Lu Ji looked at Zhou, stretched out his hand and said enthusiastically, Hello, Zhu. I am Lu Ji from the University of Foreign Studies. Zhou glanced at him, but did not reach out. He sneered, Lu Ji, you don't want to work in the company anymore, right? Lu Ji was a little baffled after hearing this. Then he thought about Huo Lily's introduction just now, saying that Zhou also studied at Hongqian Normal University before. He suddenly guessed something, and he couldn't help but feel shuddered, and he didn't dare to look at the other party boldly. At another table nearby, Xiao Qiao was also chatting with Zhang Qian, Zhang Yu, Bai Wei and others, and occasionally glanced at Zhou and others. Not only Zhou and Xiao Qiao came, but Lu Kaiyu and Shen Xinyi also came to catch up with their classmates. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 428. After a while, there was some commotion in the venue again, and a large group of beautiful girls with outstanding looks and well-dressed bustling came in from the entrance. Judging from the number of people, there were almost hundreds of people. It's the internet celebrity anchors from Kudong Studio who are here, someone said. Xiao Xian, Nier, and Ming Yao. Xiao Ning is here too. Xiangzi, Yu Xiangzi, Jing Jing, Zhao Jinjia, Xiaobu, Cao Qian, Xiaoman, Lu Man. Although internet celebrity anchors do not have as much influence as Lu Yufei, they are better because of their large number. Many people are excited after seeing their favorite anchors. The functions of current beauty software are far less powerful than those of later generations, with only basic functions such as filters, whitening, skin resurfacing, and color adjustment. Therefore, whether these anchors are cute, well-behaved, sexy, or Lolita, their appearance is basically online. There is no ugly one. There will never be a situation where a good-looking anchor turns into an ant and dies in public. Sun Wanning, Zhao Minjiao, Chen Xian, and others are the beauties who are 1 in 1,000, or even 1 in 1,000. It can be said that the current dog lickers are still very happy, at least they are licking real beauties. However, with the continuous advancement of beauty technology, it is estimated that in a few years, internet celebrity anchors will become worse than ever before, and everyone can become an anchor. The internet celebrity beauties of this period will become the objects of people's memory. Seeing the beautiful broadcasters walking towards them, Lu Ji was even more excited. He stood up, waved and shouted, Minjiao, Minjiao, look here. His outstanding performance not only attracted the attention of beautiful anchors such as Zhao Minjiao, but also attracted the attention of many people around him. Minjiao nodded to me, Seeing Zhao Minjiao turning around and seeming to nod to him, Lu Ji couldn't restrain himself with excitement. Noticing the looks of people around him, Hegang felt a little embarrassed and said to him, "Okay, sit down quickly." He Lu glanced at Lu Ji and said, "Funny, do you like that Zhao Minjiao that much?" "Of course, I am a loyal fan of Minjiao, level 12 lantern. I have watched every live broadcast of hers." Lu Ji looked proud. He Lu laughed after hearing this. Hegang shook his head, also disapproving. Cao Xiaojian, Song Xiona, and Tan Hui were all indifferent. Huo Lily smiled and said, "Minjiao is indeed beautiful and lovable. She is also considered an amateur anchor, earning 3 to 5,000 yuan every month." Zhou Ziyu glanced at Lu Ji and remembered a word Li Jie had told her, "lick the dog." She felt that this Lu Ji was very similar. When the time comes to 6 o'clock, in the evening, the annual meeting officially begins. The hosts are a man and a woman. The female host is Lu Yan and the male host is Yi Xiaoxing. One of the two is beautiful and sexy, with rich hosting experience, and the other is pleasant looking and witty. When they work together, the hosting effect is very good. After the host finished his opening remarks, it was time for the leader to make a speech. As soon as Li Jie stepped onto the podium, there was a warm round of applause. He smiled and pressed his hands, and after the applause subsided, he began to address the annual meeting, summarizing the group's work this year, commending outstanding employees, and affirming the achievements of all employees. Li Jie had no manuscripts, but when it came to the company's data, he was very familiar with it, and he also had information about employees at his fingertips. All this involves hard work, just like he did to Xiaoqiao, Zhou Ziyu, and others. Seeing Li Jie calmly and confidently speaking on the stage, Zhou Ziyu was sitting under the stage, with tenderness and a bit of a smile on her beautiful face, a slight arc at the corners of her lips, and a pair of beautiful eyes. Full of color, she looked at him with admiration and adoration. You can refer to the way Milk Tea looked at Richard Lu in the audience. Tan Hui beside her looked at Li Jie in a daze, wondering what he was thinking. Not only Zhou Ziyu, but also Xiaoqiao, Lu Kaiyu, Shen Xinyi, Lu Yufei, Lu Enzialan, Su Yani, Chen Xian, and others all looked at Li Jie with admiration and admiration. Xiaoqiao's eyes were full of stars. Women are born to worship the strong. What young girl wouldn't like a young, promising, and successful person like Li Jie? Many employees looked at Li Jie with admiration and admiration. People admire and respect the strong. Li Jie has a legendary entrepreneurial experience. In just 2 years, he established a large-scale entertainment group. In his early 20s, he had a net worth of more than 3 billion, making him the youngest billionaire on the wealth list. Most employees believe in such a boss from the bottom of their hearts. With Li Jie here, they also believe that the company will definitely develop better and better. Seeing Chen Xian staring intently at Li Jie on the stage, Fang Wenwen, who was sitting aside, touched her and whispered with a smile, "What, are you a nymphomaniac?" Chen Xian came back to her senses and glanced at her, a little embarrassed. Su Yani, who was sitting at the same table as the two of them, looked away from Li Jie and fell on Chen Xian, with a hint of disapproval flashing across her face. In her opinion, if you like someone, you have to act and fight for it. Having a crush like Chen Xian is very futile and misses the opportunity. Thinking of this, Su Yani was very proud of her bold move. Following a man like Li Jie, even as a lover, was countless times better than finding an ordinary boy. Not far away, Lu Enzialan also set her sights on Lu Yufei. Seeing the other party staring closely at Li Jie with a bright smile on his face, she bit her lip and her hostility increased. Lu Enzialan had been very suspicious before. The relationship between Lu Yufei and Li Jie was not simple. Otherwise, why would Li Jie be so good to her? Is she worth the 33 million signing fee? Now Lu Enzialan is more certain of her thoughts. Wang Zhaining left, but Lu Yufei came again. These two sisters who were in conflict with each other sincerely had a hard time with her, right? Luan Xiaolin only stared at Lu Yufei, but she didn't notice that Nini, who was sitting at the table next to her, was also staring at her and Lu Yufei. Li Zhe's speech was not short, and he summarized almost all the companies under the Kudong Group. Finally, he made an outlook for the group's development in the new year and sent blessings to all employees. After the speech, the audience burst into warm applause again, which lasted for a long time. Next, comes the moment that all employees are most looking forward to, the distribution of red envelopes. After Li Zhe announced that he would give out 10 million red envelopes, the warmest applause immediately broke out, and many people shouted "Long live the boss!" In this era, giving out tens of millions of red envelopes is a big event that many people have never seen before. How much is 10 million yuan? About 0.15 cubic meters, about 150 pounds. More than 30 young and beautiful waitresses walked in, each carrying a tray full of red envelopes, and distributed red envelopes to everyone by area. He's Hegang, Lu Ji, He Lu, and Huo Lily watched a waitress walking over with a tray. "Here we come," Lu Ji couldn't help but say. The most exciting thing about receiving a red envelope is the moment you get it. The unknown amount adds to the sense of anticipation and happiness. The waitress came to the table, asked their names, gave them the red envelopes one by one, and then went to the next table to give out red envelopes. 9 people, He's Hegang, Lu Ji, Lin Jing, Chen Wenjing, He Lu, Huo Lily, Cao Xiaoqian, Song Xiona, and Tan Hui, looked at each other while holding red envelopes. As for Zhou Ziyu, she is not an employee of Kudong Group and does not receive red envelopes. Not only did she not have it, but neither did Xiao Qiao or Shen Xinyi. Lu Ji felt the thickness of the red envelope and guessed, "I feel it's at least 2,000 yuan. Open it and you'll know." After saying that, Huo Lily took the lead in opening the red envelope and took out the money inside and counted it. 2,800 yuan, there was surprise in her tone. When He's Hegang, Lu Ji, and He Lu heard this, they all opened the red envelopes one after another. He Lu glanced at Zhou Ziyu and said with a smile, "Mr. Li is so generous." Huo Lily nodded in agreement, "Yeah, I thought it would only cost more than 1,000 yuan at most. After all, we are just interns. This amount of money is equivalent to 2 months of their internship salary, far exceeding expectations." Song Xiona said, "I don't know how much the red envelope is for regular employees." Lu Ji said nonchalantly, "Anyway, there must be a lot more than us." Zhou Ziyu looked at the scene with a faint smile on his face. If she hadn't met Li Zhe, she might have been as excited as them about 2,000 to 3,000 yuan apiece. This is the life of ordinary people, but it is not the life she wants. Soon someone revealed that the red envelopes for regular employees ranged from more than 6,000 to more than 8,000, depending on the position and the length of years. Li Zhe's main purpose of issuing year-end red envelopes this time is to benefit ordinary employees and let them have a good year. The red envelopes for senior staff are only 1,000 to 2,000 more than those for ordinary employees. For example, Zhang Jingxian's red envelope is 8,600 yuan. For executives like Zhang Jingxian, a red envelope of 7,000 to 8,000 is not enough. At the mid-level level, the salary plus bonuses is tens of thousands of yuan a month, and senior executives like Zhang Jingxian earn an annual salary of millions, not counting virtual equity incentive dividends. Let the senior management take more, just to reflect the level difference. After the red envelopes were distributed, the atmosphere became more lively, and the employees were all beaming with joy and laughter. They are very satisfied with the red envelopes, especially the ordinary employees at the bottom. Before getting the red envelope, they subconsciously thought that the top people would get the big money and the bottom people would get the small money. This is also a consistent unspoken rule. As a result, the money I got was far more than expected, so I was naturally surprised. Next is the performance and the lottery. The performers are mainly artists from Cuckoo Entertainment and internet celebrity anchors from Kudong Studio. The show was not rehearsed and the performers improvised. In Lee Je's view, there is no need to make this kind of internal performance too formal. In addition, more than 150 lottery numbers will appear on the big screen every 20 minutes. Those with corresponding numbers can go to the lottery area to participate in the lottery. Just like last year, everyone will win a prize, with a minimum of 100 yuan in red envelopes. There are also grand prizes such as smartphones, laptops, DV cameras, 5,000 yuan red envelopes, 10,000 yuan red envelopes, etc. The total value of the prizes is 5 million. The special prize is an entry-level Porsche sports car. When the host Lu Yan said that the total value of the prizes was 5 million, and the special prize was a Porsche sports car, the scene became a sensation again, and the employees were very excited. With millions of prizes last year, they felt that the company was very generous. Unexpectedly, this year the number has increased fivefold, and the special prize has changed from an ordinary car to a luxury sports car. If you could really win a Porsche sports car, wouldn't it be a huge profit? He's Hegang, Lu Ji, He Lu, Huo Lily, Cao Xiaoqian, and Song Ziona were all excited. Lin Jing, Chen Wenjing, and Tan Hui also lost their composure. Lu Ji said excitedly, "What a Porsche sports car! Mr. Li is so proud." As he said that, he glanced at Zhou Ziyu subconsciously. "It would be great if I could get it." Lin Jing sighed, "Even the entry-level Porsche sports car costs at least 600,000 to 700,000 yuan. He Lu's eyes were full of longing. "If I could win a Porsche, I would sleep in the car during the Chinese New Year." She had seen Zhou Ziyu and Xiao Qiao driving around in a Porsche in school. She was so envious at that time that she wanted to find a boyfriend who drove a Porsche. He's Hegang calmed down a little. 15 or 600 people participated in the lottery, and the probability of winning is too low. That's much higher than the probability of winning a lottery ticket. It was Huo Lily who spoke. She, Cao Xiaoqian, and Song Ziona also had longing in their eyes. When they took Zhou Ziyu's Porsche Boxster S for a ride in the past, they thought that they would never be able to afford such a sports car. Now they also have a chance to get it, although the probability is very small. Thinking this, they all subconsciously looked at Zhou Ziyu. Zhou Ziyu looked at their excited and admiring looks, but his first reaction was that it was just an entry-level Porsche. Is that so? But soon, she gave the answer in her heart, "This is really it." Although Zhou Ziyu had already given up the Boxster S to her mother Zhou Qing, she still remembered how happy and fond she was when she first received the sports car. If it weren't for Li Jie, that sports car would be something she couldn't hope for. She wouldn't be able to buy it like she does now, and get whatever she wants, looking down at He's Hegang, He Lu, and Huo Lily. So she had to get her status. She was bound to get that certificate, and no one could take it away. The first program of the annual meeting is a multi-person dance performed by 7 or 8 internet celebrity anchors from Kudong Studio. Although they have not rehearsed and their dance movements are not consistent, a group of young and beautiful girls standing together is a beautiful scenery. Whether they dance well or not is not that important. The employees in the audience were also very considerate and applauded constantly. After the first show was performed, it was time to announce the first batch of lottery numbers. Everyone at the scene became nervous and stared at the big screen. Not to mention ordinary employees, even company executives, artists, and internet celebrities can hardly resist the temptation of a Porsche. It is estimated that only a very few people, such as Lu Yufei, Lu Enzialan, and Lu Kaiyu, do not value this Porsche very much. He's Hegang, Lu Ji, He Lu, and Huo Lily took their respective lottery numbers and stared at the big screen like everyone else, hoping that they would be selected. The earlier you draw, the higher your chances of winning big prizes like a Porsche. If the sports car is taken away first, there will be no chance at all. Soon, more than 150 numbers appeared on the big screen. After browsing the numbers on the big screen, Huo Lily said excitedly, "There's me, number 487. "Me too," He Lu said with a smile. "I was also selected," Tan Hui said softly. He's Hegang, Lu Ji, and Lin Jing looked at each other and shook their heads. None of the three boys were selected. "Let's go to the lottery," Huo Lily stood up. "Okay," He Lu and Tan Hui also stood up. The three of them followed the other participants in the lottery and came to the lottery area behind the venue. There was a large red lottery box on the table in the lottery area. The box was full of lottery tickets. All the lottery staff lined up one by one and took out the lottery tickets from the box. The special prize tickets are mixed in the box with all the lottery tickets, and it depends on who is lucky enough to win. Huo Lily, He Lu, and Tan Hui lined up in the queue and looked forward. Most of the people in the front row who had drawn prizes sighed, while a few were beaming with joy. Those who sigh will receive participation prizes of 100 yuan, 200 yuan, etc. Those who were overjoyed were more lucky and won good prizes such as smartphones, laptops, and DV cameras. The winning rate is very good. Basically, one person out of 5 or 6 people will win a small prize. Seeing that there were 60 or 70 people lined up in front of him, He Lu said worriedly, "I hope the special prize won't be taken away by anyone before us." She was really obsessed with that Porsche. "Hey, I'm sorry," Huo Lily was not tall. In order to see the situation in the front row, she could only put her feet up. As a result, she lost her balance and bumped into the girl in front. The girl in front of Huo Lily is about the same height as her, about 160 centimeters tall. She has straight bangs and is quite cute. She turned back to Huo Lily and said, "Dot. What did you say?" Huo Lily didn't understand at all. She felt like the other person was speaking Korean. "Are there any South Korean employees in the group?" "It doesn't matter," the girl said something in very poor Chinese again. Upon hearing this, Huo Lily was even more sure that the other party was really from South Korea or Korea. She asked with great interest, "Are you South Korean? Are you from South Korea?" She spoke a little fast, and the girl obviously didn't understand her well. "Can you slow down? I don't quite understand." Huo Lily slowed down and said word by word, "Are you South Korean?" This time the girl understood, smiled, and nodded, "I'm from South Korea." Huo Lily pointed at herself and said word by word, "My name is Huo Lily, what is your name?" The girl thought for a while and said word by word, "My name is Li Zian. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn." Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 429. Li Zian, Huo Lily repeated. The girl nodded, "Yes, Li Zian." There seems to be a slight difference in their understanding. Huo Lily and the South Korean girl named Li Zian chatted for a while, and the other party said something in Korean from time to time. She learned that the other party was an artist from Kuku Entertainment. But he is an artist from the South Korean branch. Huo Lily felt that she had discovered a secret. The group actually had a company in South Korea, and its scale was getting bigger and bigger. Huo Lily asked Li Zian what his QQ account was and if she could add him as a friend. She was quite curious about foreign countries. But Li Zian told her that he did not have QQ. Huo Lily reacted as soon as she heard it. She had forgotten how it was possible for South Koreans to use QQ. Li Zian gave Huo Lily a mobile phone number and said they could contact her by phone. After she came to China this time, she found that it was completely different from what she imagined. It was very developed and international, and was no worse than Seoul. The lottery was drawn very quickly, and it was almost Huo Lily's turn. Seeing that Huo Lily was still chatting with the South Korean girl, He Lu couldn't help but said, "Okay, you two, stop talking. It's our turn to draw the lottery." She has no interest in international friends, she only cares about Porsche. After the previous male employee drew a prize, it was Li Zian's turn. After handing over the lottery number to the staff, she came to the lottery box and tentatively reached out and took out a lottery ticket. Huo Lily poked her head from behind and asked curiously, "Zhen, what did you draw?" "Third prize." "Zhen, you are so lucky," she couldn't help but exclaimed. After hearing this, Lu, Tan Hui, and other employees in line looked at Li Zhen with envious eyes. The third prize is a big red envelope of 50,000 yuan. This girl is so lucky. Looking at Huo Lily, Li Zhen was a little confused. She still didn't understand the value of the third prize. When Huo Lily said you won 50,000 yuan, she subconsciously thought it was 50,000 won. Is 50,000 won worth being so excited? "Lily, it's your turn," Lu urged. Seeing that Li Zhen won the grand prize of 50,000 yuan, she looked forward to the lottery even more. Huo Lily stepped forward, reached into the lottery box, touched a lot of lottery tickets, and randomly drew one out. Although she had a little hope of winning a Porsche, she did not have as high expectations as Lu. After all, the probability of winning the grand prize was too low. She would be satisfied if she could win small prizes such as a smartphone, a laptop, and a red envelope of 5,000 yuan. 500 yuan red envelope. After seeing the contents on the lottery ticket, Huo Lily couldn't help but feel a little disappointed, but she soon felt relieved. The 500 yuan was also for nothing. "It's my turn." Lu stood in front of the lottery box, extremely nervous. The greater her expectations, the more nervous and uneasy she became. She hesitantly put her hand into the box, but instead of going directly for the lottery tickets, she first touched the inner walls of the box. Lu heard that many companies and businesses would play tricks when conducting lottery activities. A common trick is to glue the grand prize coupons to the inner wall of the lottery box. Although the old employees who participated in last year's lottery said that Mr. Li is a proud person and the company will definitely not engage in secret operations, this is a Porsche worth at least 600,000 to 700,000 yuan, which is not comparable to last year's 100,000 yuan ordinary car. Would a company really let ordinary employees, or even interns like them, take away luxury goods? Lu didn't believe it. If the company is really playing tricks, then she will make a lot of money. As long as she gets the grand prize ticket, the company has to give her the Porsche sports car. Thinking of this, Lu couldn't help but reveal a smile. But she spent a long time touching the inside of the box, but she couldn't find any lottery tickets stuck on it. Is this lottery really not tricky? Lu was both surprised and unwilling. Seeing the ink mark of Lu drawing a prize, the people in the queue behind were a little impatient. A female employee urged, "Hey, can you hurry up?" "That's right, beauty, hurry up," a male employee also echoed. Lu touched a large number of lottery tickets in the box, but she was a little panicked. There were so many lottery tickets, but only one of them was a special prize ticket, but which one was it? She took one lottery ticket and felt it was not good, so she put it down and changed it to another one, but she still felt it was not good. After changing more than a dozen lottery tickets in a row, she still couldn't make up her mind. After all, she only had one chance. People waiting in line are getting more and more impatient. Can you draw a prize and stop being so ink? Do you think you can win a Porsche if you smoke a little longer? Listening to people's urging, Lu took a lottery ticket from the middle of the pile of lottery tickets, then she gritted her teeth and pulled out the lottery ticket. Lu let out a breath, and instead of rushing to look at the lottery tickets, she first gave up her position to Tan Hui behind her. "What did you draw?" Huo Lily asked curiously. Lu looked at the lottery ticket in her hand nervously. "Fourth prize. A big red envelope of 10,000 yuan? You are so lucky," Huo Lily said with envy. Lu's expression was one of indescribable disappointment. The big red envelope of 10,000 yuan was nice, but she had no luck with Porsche. At this time, Tan Hui also drew a prize, Let's go and receive the prize. Huo Lily asked again, Zia Wai, what did you draw? Tan Hui did not answer, but looked at the lottery ticket in her hand. The red envelope of 1000 yuan is not bad, but I have the worst luck, Huo Lily sighed. Li Zian followed Huo Lily, He Lu, and Tan Hui to the award-receiving area nearby. On the two large round tables in the award-receiving area and on the ground, there were piles of smartphones, laptops, DV cameras, and other digital products, as well as stacks of red envelopes, which made them look proud. There were 3 security guards in black suits looking after the prizes, and 2 pretty young waitresses distributing the prizes. One of the security guards, Huo Lily, who looked like a person in charge, recognized him as the driver who drove Li Jie before. His name seemed to be Shen. A waitress took the lottery tickets from Huo Lily, He Lu, and Tan Hui, took 3 red envelopes of different thicknesses, and handed them to each of them. He Lu's red envelope was the thickest, more than 1 centimeter, while Tan Hui's and Huo Lily's red envelopes were very thin. Li Zian also followed them and handed the lottery ticket in his hand to the waitress. The waitress took a look at the lottery ticket and couldn't help showing envy. 50,000 yuan big red envelope. She worked hard in the hotel for a year and only earned more than 30,000 yuan. This red envelope was her salary for 1.5 years. The benefits of this Kudong group are really good, with piles of high-end digital products, huge red envelopes of 50,000, 100,000, and 200,000, and even Porsche sports cars. She has never seen a company that is so generous to its employees. It would be great if she could also work in this company. When Li Zian saw the waitress handing her 5 red envelopes, she was a little confused and asked uncertainly, "Are they all for me?" The waitress glanced at Li Zian, and she felt that this girl looked a little special. It turned out that she was really a foreigner, and she felt like she was from South Korea. "Yes, it's all yours," she said with a smile. Huo Lily also smiled and said, "A red envelope is worth 10,000, and if you win 50,000, it's all yours." 50,000 yuan, Li Zian couldn't believe it. "Yes, it's RMB, not Korean won," He Lu said. Only then did Li Zian accept the 5 red envelopes, his face beaming with joy. 50,000 yuan is converted into nearly 9 million won. At this time, the average monthly salary level of South Koreans is about 1 million to 1.5 million won, which is equivalent to about 6,000 to 8,000 yuan in RMB, and the minimum income is 6,000 yuan. In South Korea, ordinary artists are not considered a high-income group. A young artist like Li Zian, who has just debuted, has an income even lower than that of ordinary people. She can barely make enough money to spend. Now that she got a year's income for free, it's no wonder she's unhappy. Li Zian didn't expect that he would win a grand prize when he was invited to the head office to attend the annual meeting. After receiving the prize, the 4 girls walked back together. Seeing Li Zian holding 5 thick red envelopes in his hand, everyone around him looked envious. Arriving near the intern seating area, Huo Lily said goodbye to Li Zian and sat back in her seat with He Lu and Tan Hui. On the rostrum, Zhao Minjiao was wearing a white dress with her shoulders exposed, holding a microphone and singing Confession Balloon. With her clear and bright eyes, cute expression, and sweet and melodious singing voice, the audience present was attracted by her performance. As for why there is a song Confession Balloon now, of course it was Li Jie who did it. He's Hegang, Lu Ji, Lin Jing, Chen Wenjing, Cao Xiaoqian, Song Ziona, and Zhou Ziu were all watching the performance intently. Lu Ji stared at Zhao Minjiao so hard that his eyes widened. Noticing that Huo Lily and the others were back, He's Hegang, Cao Xiaoqian, Song Ziona, and Zhou Ziu all turned their heads and their eyes fell on the red envelopes in their hands. He's Hegang asked, "All 3 of you won red envelopes?" Huo Lily nodded and said, "He Lu won 10,000, Zia Y won 1,000, and I was the worst unlucky, only winning 500. 10,000. He's Hegang, Cao Xiaoqian, and Song Xiona were all envious. Linjing and Chen Wenjing also turned their heads and glanced at He Lu, showing envy as well. Facing their envious looks, He Lu looked disappointed. She was still thinking about the Porsche sports car. Cao Xiaoqian said, I saw on the big screen that someone won the third prize of 50,000 yuan in red envelopes. When Huo Lily heard this, she quickly said, it was a South Korean girl who won the lottery. Her name is Li Zian. She is an artist from the South Korean branch of our company. Does our company have a branch in South Korea? He's Higang, Cao Xiaoqian, and Song Xiona were all a little surprised when they heard this. At this time, Zhao Minjiao finished her performance on the stage, and there was a warm round of applause. Lu Ji withdrew his gaze from the stage and looked at Huo Lily, He Lu, and Tan Hui. Are you back after drawing the prizes? He Lu looked at Lu Ji and thought, Lu Ji, how about you sell me your lottery number? She has no chance to win the lottery, but she can buy someone else's chance to win the lottery. There is no limit on who can win the lottery. Sell you the lottery numbers. Lu Ji glanced at He Lu. No, I still want to smoke a Porsche. I'll give you 5,000, He Lu said, opening the red envelope and counting out 5,000 yuan. Lu Ji was a little moved when he saw the money in her hand, but still refused. Then I won't sell it. Maybe I'll be lucky enough to get a Porsche. Even if I don't get a Porsche, I might get a big red envelope of 200,000 or 100,000 yuan. Huo Lily interjected, you may also draw only 500 like me, or even draw 200 or 100. Then I'm willing to take a gamble. Lu Ji paused and then said to He Lu, but if you are willing to pay 20,000, I will sell it to you. He Lu laughed angrily after hearing this, 20,000. That's a good idea. Lu Ji smiled a little and said, then I won't sell it. He Lu looked at Lu Ji and felt that this guy was particularly hateful. For a beautiful woman like her, I don't know what to do. A boy at a table next to him suddenly said to He Lu, Beauty, do you want to buy lottery numbers? Are you willing to sell? He Lu turned her head and glanced at the other party. The boy nodded, only 10,000. 10,000 is too much, 6,000 at most. The two discussed the price for a while, and He Lu bought the boy's lottery number for 7,000. People have different ideas. Some people are just like He Lu, who is greedy and wants to use small things to make a big difference. There are also boys like the boys who sold lottery numbers. They don't want to be big, but just want to be safe and secure. But as long as there are huge profits, there will never be a shortage of lucky gamblers in the world. Therefore, there are many people buying lottery numbers, not just He Lu. He Lu counted the money left in her hand, and found that there were still 3,000 left in the lottery red envelope. Adding the previous 2,800 red envelopes and the cash she had on her, there was still more than 8,000 in total. She decided to find someone to buy another lottery number. The more draws there are, the greater the possibility of winning the jackpot. Suddenly, there was a sensation at the scene. It turned out that Lu Yufei was performing on stage. Returning to the artist's seating area, Li Zian sat back in his seat. At the same table with her were Lu Yufei, Lu Mu, Lu Enzilan, Zhao Yahuan, Nini, Naza, and others. Seeing Li Zian put 5 thick red envelopes on the table, they just glanced at them and didn't care much. They are not ordinary people, and no one will take this little money seriously. No, Naza, who was sitting next to Li Zian, was still a little envious. She has just debuted and hasn't made much money yet. Naza said to Li Zian in Korean, Zian, you won the third prize? You are so lucky. During her training in South Korea, she lived in the same dormitory with Li Zian. The two got along day and night for a year and had a good relationship. Li Zian was still a little excited, nodded, and said, I didn't expect my luck. Uni, our president is so generous. I have never seen a lottery worth hundreds of millions of dollars, South Korean won, in South Korea. After winning the prize, she felt a greater sense of belonging to the head office. After hearing this, NASA smiled and said, "Yes. The special prize is a Porsche." She also had some thoughts about the Porsche. Who among girls doesn't like Porsche? Lee Zian and NASA were chatting quietly in Korean, talking and laughing. Lu Yufei, Luin Xiaolin, Nini, and others beside them had not said anything before, and the atmosphere was a bit tense. Lu Yufei suddenly stood up and said to Liu's mother, "Mom, I'm going to perform on stage." Lu Yufei's performance involves juggling swords and flowers with one hand, which is the basic skill she learned while filming martial arts dramas. "It's just that I haven't practiced for a long time, so my movements are a bit rusty." But this did not prevent the audience from applauding. For many ordinary employees, being able to see Lu Yufei perform is something worth showing off. It doesn't matter if the performance is good or bad. After Lu Yufei's performance was over, it was time to announce the second batch of lottery numbers. Lu held 2 lottery numbers in her hand, looked at the lottery numbers on the big screen, and stood up with a smile. This time it's her again. It was the second lottery number that was chosen. Lu spent 7,000 yuan to buy the first lottery number, but spent 8,000 yuan for the second one. Now she only has 200 to 300 yuan left. Because there are many people who are willing to spend money to buy lottery numbers, but not many people are willing to sell them. Lu Ji, Lin Jing, and Song Xiona also stood up, and the 3 of them were also selected. In this lottery, Lu and Lu Ji left and came back quickly. "It'll be over in 5 or 6 minutes. Lin Jing held a smartphone in his hand, while Lu Ji, Lu, and Song Xiona each held a thin red envelope with disappointed expressions. Again glanced at the mobile phone in Lin Jing's hand and said with a smile, "Lin Zi, you are lucky, you won a mobile phone." Lin Jing smiled and said, "I feel that the probability of winning is quite high. About 1 of the 6 or 7 people will win a digital product or a big red envelope." After sitting down, he gave the phone to his girlfriend Chen Wenjing. "Xiaojing, you can use this phone. The mobile phone is Meizu M8, with a market price of more than 2,000 yuan. Chen Wenjing took the phone and gave her lottery number to Lin Jing. "It's up to you to draw this one too." Lu glanced at Lu Ji and said a little sarcastically, "I won 100 yuan even though I was drawing a Porsche. Why don't you sell me the lottery number?" Lu Ji retorted, "Don't talk about me, you're not going anywhere. I bought the lottery numbers for 7,000 or 8,000 yuan, but I only won 500 yuan, right? If you do it again you'll lose everything." You. Seeing that Lu Ji dared to curse her, Lu hated this guy even more. Song Xiona glanced at Zhou with a smile, and said to Huo Lily and the others, "Lily, Xiaoqian, we also saw Mr. Li, he also went to draw the lottery." Lu Ji then said, "Mr. Li was not very lucky, so he won 200 yuan. As he spoke, he laughed. That look seemed to say that he was not the only one unlucky. However, after noticing Zhou looking at him with an intriguing expression, Lu Ji immediately stopped smiling. He is now almost certain that Zhou and Li Jie are definitely closely related. Can you guess who can draw that Porsche? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 430. Lu said, "I heard from old employees that Mr. Li's luck was not very good last year. He only won 100 yuan in red envelopes." "Really?" Gang, Lu Ji, Huo Lily, Cao Xiaoqian, Song Xiona, and Tan Hui all heard about this for the first time. Song Xiona smiled and said, "It's really bad luck to win the consolation prize 2 years in a row." Huo Lily said, "However, Li Jie is really generous. Many companies hold activities and draws are predetermined, and the grand prizes are awarded to senior executives. For our group, even interns like us can participate. Our company is really good, and Mr. Lee is really kind. He's Higang, Luji, Hilu, and Cao Xiaoqian all nodded in agreement. That is to say, Kudong Group. It is impossible for any other company to allow interns like them to participate in the year-end lottery. Not to mention the event rewards are so rich. Cao Xiaoqian glanced at Huo Lily and joked, "Lily, I noticed that you always say good things about Mr. Li. It's a pity that Mr. Lee is not here and can't hear it, otherwise he would definitely promote you." Song Ziona listened and said, "Mr. Lee is not here, but..." She did not continue speaking, but looked at Josiah with a smile. Huo Lily said with a smile, "What's wrong with me saying good things about Mr. Lee? Mr. Lee is just good." As she said this, she looked at Josiah, "Isn't that right, Ziu?" With a faint smile on his face, Josiah glanced at Huo Lily and then at Song Ziona, but said nothing. At this time, the second prize ×2 on the big screen changed to ×1, which means that someone has won the second prize. The second prize is a large red envelope of RMB 100,000. The second prize was taken away, Song Ziona said with deep envy in her tone. Others could win big red envelopes worth 50,000 or 100,000 yuan, but she only won 1,000 yuan, a difference of 50 or hundreds of times. Not to mention the first prize of 200,000 red envelopes and a Porsche sports car. Not only her, but He's Higang, Luji, Hilu, Huo Lily and others were also envious. Especially Luji felt extremely unbalanced, so he won 100 yuan, the lowest consolation prize. He really regretted it. If he had known this, he might as well have sold the lottery numbers to Hilu. 7,000 yuan is enough for him to support many young ladies who have made mistakes. I wonder who is so lucky. Luji's tone was full of sourness. Hilu gave him a cold look and said, "It's useless to be jealous, you only have $100 to live." Soon, the news spread that the second prize winner was a girl who had just joined the company. The girl just graduated this year and jumped with excitement after winning the prize. In this day and age, 100,000 yuan is really not a small amount of money. Ordinary people may not be able to save 100,000 yuan even if they work hard for 5 or 6 years. For an ordinary girl who just started working, she would be crazy if she got 100,000 yuan for nothing. The programs on the stage are going on one after another, and the draws are also going on one after another. In the third and fourth rounds of draws, no one from He's Higang's table was selected. In the fifth round, Chen Wenjing was selected. Lin Jing went to the lottery on behalf of his girlfriend and won another DV camera worth more than 5,000 yuan. He's Higang couldn't help but said, "Lin Zi, you are really lucky." Seeing Lin Jing's good luck, He's Higang, Lu Ji and Huo Lily were all envious. Lin Jing smiled and said nothing. Cao Xiaoqian said to him, "Lin Jing, you are so lucky, why don't you give me a stroke? I'm never very lucky." Lin Jing glanced at her, smiled and said, "It's better to say goodbye. I won 2 prizes and my luck is probably all gone. For things like helping people draw a lottery, everything goes well if the result is good. If the result is not good, even if others don't say anything on the surface, they will still have some grudge in their hearts." Lin Jing has a high emotional intelligence, so of course he would not do such a favor. After 5 rounds of drawings, 1 second prize was taken away, 2 third prizes were taken away, leaving only 1 first, second, and third prize each, as well as a special prize of a Porsche. In the following 6th and 7th rounds of draws, no one from He's Higang or the others was selected. However, in the 7th round of drawing, the first prize was taken away. The winner is considered an old employee. He joined Qwen Technology when it first moved to Shanghai. After winning the lottery, the male employee in his early 30s cried with joy. He had only been working in Shanghai for 7 or 8 years, and his biggest wish was to buy a house in Shanghai. but he didn't want to take on a mortgage and wanted to buy a house in full, so he couldn't get the money together. Now with these 200,000, I finally have the money to buy a house. When the 8th round of draws came, looking at the big screen, Hilu and Cao Xiaoqian stood up one after another. Cao Xiaoqian was selected, and Hilu was also selected for the third time. Fortunately, the Porsche is still there. Hilu was both worried and looking forward to it. She didn't wait for Cao Xiaoqian and hurried to the lottery area alone, fearing that she would be late and the Porsche would be taken away first. 3 to 5 minutes later, Lu Ji saw Hilu coming back with 5 thick red envelopes and a complicated look on her face. He was surprised and envious and said, "You won the third prize." He subconsciously looked at the big screen, and sure enough, the words third prize had dimmed. Hilu glanced at Lu Ji, ignored him, threw the 5 big red envelopes on the table, and sat down. She was not unhappy after winning the 5th prize of 50,000 yuan, but she still failed to win the Porsche. His Higang looked at Hilu and felt that the other party was a bit too greedy. If he could win 50,000, he would be very satisfied. Thinking like this, he also glanced at the big screen and found that the 3 words second prize had also dimmed, leaving only the 3 words special prize still on. The last second prize red envelope of 100,000 yuan was also taken away. "I'm back," Cao Xiaoqian came back with a smile, holding a laptop. "Xiaoqian, you won a laptop," Song Ziona said a little enviously. Cao Xiaoqian smiled and nodded, "It's rare for me to be lucky." Lu Ji looked at the laptop in Cao Xiaoqian's hand, and then at the pile of big red envelopes in front of Hilu, feeling increasingly unbalanced. Why does he have the worst luck? The most uncomfortable thing is when people have nothing to do with themselves. Hilu's eyes fell on his Higang. He was the only one at their table who still had a chance to draw. "Brother Gang, why don't you sell me the lottery numbers?" "You still want to smoke," Lu Ji couldn't help but say. 50,000 is not enough, this woman is too greedy. "What does it have to do with you?" Hilu asked Lu Ji. "This boy is so annoying." His Higang looked at Hilu, hesitated and said, "Then how much will you pay?" "I'll give you 10,000. Hilu paused and then said, "Brother Gang, this price is not low. Now the only grand prize is the Porsche, and the remaining small prizes are only worth 10,000 yuan at most." Okay, his Higang took out the lottery numbers and handed them to Hilu. Just like Hilu said, the only grand prize is the Porsche. Instead of competing for the 1 in 200 or 300 chance, it is better to get the 10,000 yuan safely. "Brother Gang, thank you." Hilu smiled and took the lottery number, and then also gave his Higang a red envelope. She can draw again. The 9th round of drawings is over. It is already 10 o'clock in the evening, and the annual meeting is almost over. The special prize has still not been taken away, and at this time, there are less than 150 people left who have not yet drawn the prize. Hilu clutched the lottery ticket in her hand tightly, feeling anxious and expecting to the extreme. She has a 1 in 150 chance of drawing a Porsche, which is already very high. If you can buy a few more lottery numbers, the probability will be even greater. Lu Ji glanced at his Higang, smiled, and asked, "Do you regret it?" "What do you regret?" his Higang asked. Lu Ji said, "The probability is already very high now. If you hadn't sold your lottery numbers, you might have a real chance of winning a Porsche." His Higang shook his head, "I don't think I have such good luck." Before the last round of lottery started, Hilu took the 4 red envelopes and hurried to the lottery area first. "But I found that there were already 20 or 30 people queuing in front of the lottery box." Hilu regretted coming late and quickly queued up at the back of the queue. She just hoped that the person in front of her would not take away the Porsche, otherwise she would not be able to draw it. Soon, the queue behind Hilu was also full of people. Hilu stood in the queue, looked back and forth, and then said loudly, "Does anyone want to sell lottery numbers?" 10,000 each. When she shouted, the eyes of many people around her were attracted. Hilu added, "If you want to sell, hurry up, I only want two." "Do you really want to buy one for 10,000? asked a man at the front of the queue. "Of course I will buy it." "Okay, I'll sell it." Hilu bought the man's lottery number and changed to the other person's position. There were only 5 people in front of her. Next, Hilu bought 3 more lottery numbers and spent the remaining 3 red envelopes. In this way, she has 5 lottery numbers in her hand, which can be drawn 5 times. Once the lottery numbers were announced on the big screen, the 10th and final round of lottery began. After the 5 people in front drew prizes one by one, it was Hilu's turn soon. 1000 yuan red envelope, 500 yuan red envelope, and a DV camera. After drawing 3 times in a row, Hilu still didn't get a Porsche. Holding the last 2 lottery numbers in her hand, Hilu felt extremely stressed. She gave the staff another lottery number, reached into the lottery box again, fumbled for a while, and then pulled out a lottery ticket. 10,000 yuan red envelope. Still didn't win the Porsche. There was only one last lottery machine left. Hilu was hesitant as to whether to draw more. "Hey, can you hurry up?" "Yeah, hurry up." The people in line at the back urged me impatiently. Everyone is jealous. Seeing Hilu smoke so many times, many people felt unbalanced. Hearing the urging from behind, Hilu gritted her teeth and gave the last lottery number to the staff. She decided to continue smoking. If she didn't draw, she would have to wait in line at the end of the line, hoping that the last remaining ticket would be a Porsche. But the probability of this is too small. 5,000 yuan red envelope. Looking at the lottery ticket in her hand, Hilu felt extremely disappointed. After 8 draws, she still couldn't win the Porsche. In fact, although Hilu didn't win the Porsche, she definitely didn't lose. She also received a total of 16,500 yuan in red envelopes and a DV camera, all of which she got for free. Compared with those employees who only received 1,500 or even 200 or 100 red envelopes, Hilu was already very lucky. But she is not willing to give in. The lottery is still going on, and people in line come forward to draw the lottery one by one. After 7 or 8 minutes, most of the people had smoked, and only 15 or 16 people were still in line. And the Porsche sports car has still not been taken away. In the end, these 15 or 6 people were a little nervous. The winning rate is 1 in 15 or 16, which is already extremely high. "Is there anyone else who wants to sell lottery numbers?" It was Hilu who spoke. After all, she was still unwilling to give in and wanted to give it a last try. However, the premise is that someone is willing to sell her the lottery numbers. The remaining 15 or 16 people all looked at Hilu, and even a girl who was about to draw a lottery stopped. Hilu added, 20,000, I will give you 20,000, does anyone want to sell it? A woman at the end of the line said, that's okay, I'll sell it. Hilu shook her head, I don't want yours. Waiting for the final pick, the probability is too low. Then I can do it, a young man standing in the middle of the team said. Hilu looked at the other party and nodded, okay. After paying the 16,000 yuan red envelope ticket and the DV camera ticket, Hilu got the lottery number and once again stood in the lottery team. All she had left was a 500 yuan red envelope ticket. You're too persistent, the girl standing behind Hilu muttered in a low voice. Persistence. Hilu bit her lip hard after hearing this. She doesn't have as good a fate as Xiao Qiao and Zhou Ziyu. With Li Jie, she can have whatever she wants. Whatever she wants, she has to fight for it. The person standing in front of Hilu was also a girl, tall and pretty. She also looked back at Hilu. Is it that internet celebrity anchor Xiao Xian? Hilu recognized the other party. Soon, 7 of the 8 people in front of Hilu had finished drawing, and only Chen Xian was left. He Lu's hands holding the lottery numbers were a little wet, and her heart was pounding. She was extremely nervous and excited. It's her turn soon, with a 1 in 7 chance of making a last-ditch effort. Chen Xian came to the lottery box, put her hand in, and randomly drew out a lottery ticket, and then she was stunned. Seeing that Chen Xian had drawn the prize but was still standing still, He Lu couldn't help but remind her, "It's my turn." Only then did Chen Xian come to her senses, glanced at her, and moved away. Noticing the unconcealed joy on the other person's face, He Lu felt a very bad feeling in her heart. Could it be? At this time, I heard someone behind me say in an unexpected and disappointed tone, "The special prize has been taken away." He Lu subconsciously looked at the big screen, and sure enough, the 3 big words "special prize" at the top of the screen had dimmed. Was the Porsche really taken away by that Xiao Xian? She suddenly turned her head to look at Chen Xian. Not only He Lu, but the other 6 people, as well as some people who didn't leave after the lottery, all set their eyes on Chen Xian, full of envy and jealousy. "Did you really get a Porsche?" someone asked tentatively. Chen Xian suppressed her joy and nodded. Drawing a Porsche was an unexpected surprise for her. Even though a big internet celebrity like Chen Xian has an annual income of tens or millions, it is not impossible to afford an entry-level Porsche. Not to mention anything else, it was just King Shandai who took advantage of her and gave her nearly 2 million. After deducting the company's share of the money and personal tax, she could get 400,000. But who wouldn't be happy if he could get a luxury car for free? Hearing Chen Xian admit it herself, people around her became even more envious. "You are so lucky." "Yeah, what a blessing." He Lu looked at Chen Xian, her eyes full of jealousy and unwillingness. God is so unfair. She tried her best to draw the prize 9 times, but still missed the Porsche. And the other party just drew it casually. What's more, that Xiao Xian is a big internet celebrity with an annual income of millions, which is not inferior to this Porsche. But for her, this is the only opportunity in her life. 200 yuan red envelope. After drawing the prizes, He Lu felt unspeakably ironic as she looked at the 500 yuan, 200 yuan, and 2 red envelope tickets in her hands. Not only did she not get the Porsche, she also won a red envelope worth 2,800 yuan, as well as 1,500 yuan that she had with her. In the end, all the efforts are in vain. I really didn't want to be a warm man when I was reborn. Author, Li Yuanzhe. Chapter 431. After the lottery was over, the annual meeting came to an end. All we had to do was wait for the big boss Li Zhe to present awards to the lucky employees with special prizes and make his final concluding remarks. In the front row leadership seating area, senior executives of Kudong Group headed by Li Zhe sat together. Sitting on the left side of Li Zhe are Zhao Qia, the marketing manager of Qwen Technology, Yu Zhongfeng, the R/U0026D manager, and others. Sitting on the right are Anya, the general manager of Kudong Video, Zhang Jingxian, the deputy general manager of Kuku Entertainment, and others. This also represents the current structure of Kudong Group, with Qwen Technology and Kudong Video as the 2 pillar companies of the group. Sitting in the second row behind are the middle managers from various departments of the group, as well as Chuang Qian, Zheng Shan, Wang Zhaining, Huo Menjian, and others from the president's office. Lu Yufei, Luan Xiaolin, Zhao Yuhuan, Li Zian, Nini, Naza, Wang Kai, Chen Xiao, as well as Happy Twists Shenteng, Mali, and other artists from Kudong Group sat in the third row. After that are Zhao Minjiao, Sun Wanning, Su Yani, Chen Xian, Yu Xiangzi, Zhao Jinjia, Cao Qian, Lu Man, Zhang Yu and other internet celebrities under Kudong Company. After the last performance on the podium, Li Zhe, Zhao Qia, Yu Zhongfeng, Zhang Jingxian, and others took the lead in applauding. At this time, Ruan Jing came to Li Zhe's table and whispered something in his ear. Li Zhe frowned after hearing this. He didn't expect that someone would cause trouble in a lottery event. There was a female intern who actually won 9 prizes by buying other people's lottery numbers at a high price. Fortunately, the Porsche was not taken away by her, otherwise it would have caused an uproar. If an intern takes away the special prize through this trick, it will definitely be difficult for the regular employees and veteran employees to feel balanced. Originally, he gave these interns the opportunity to participate in the lottery, which was already a special consideration. As a result, there are still people who don't know how to advance or retreat, and are jumping around so happily. There is really no limit to human greed. Li Jie originally planned to wait until next year's annual meeting to hold a lottery so that it would not be so fair and he would formulate rules, but now he is even more determined. In fact, fairness is often the greatest unfairness. Interns, new employees, old employees, middle and high-level executives, including him, the big boss, have the same lottery chance. Is this fair? Interns, new employees, and ordinary employees will feel that it is fair. But older employees and senior executives will feel it is unfair. The first annual meeting was the beginning, and the second annual meeting was a joy for the people. However, starting from the third annual meeting, we need to follow the rules. Interns, including new employees who have not yet passed the probation period, are not eligible to participate in the lottery and only receive a small gift. The number of lottery draws for ordinary employees is based on years of service. As long as they are regular employees, they can get one lottery number, and those who have been employed for 1 year will get an additional lottery number, and so on. As for middle and high-level executives, they are added based on their length of service and position. For example, Li Jie, a big boss, can get basic 1 plus seniority 3 plus position 8, a total of 12 lottery numbers. The administrative level of Kudong Group is divided into 8 levels: chairman, president, general manager, deputy general manager, general assistant, director, department manager, department deputy manager, department head, team leader, technician, senior clerk, ordinary employees, assistant, commissioner. In fact, it should be level 9, but Li Jie himself serves as both chairman and president, so he has not elaborated yet. Mr. Li, Zhao Jie suddenly called Li Jie, interrupting his thoughts. It turned out that the two hosts Lu Yan and Yi Xiaoxing had already finished their transitional speeches, and the lucky employee Chen Xian also came on stage. It was time for the big boss Li Jie to come on stage to present the award. Li Jie stood up, straightened his clothes a little, and stepped onto the podium. After taking the stage, he shook hands with Chen Xian and congratulated her. Li Jie didn't expect that the person who won the Porsche would be Chen Xian, but he was quite happy for her. Men will inevitably have a crush on girls who admire them, especially beautiful girls, even if they don't like them. Chen Xian looked at Li Jie, her eyes full of admiration and joy. For her, it was an unexpected joy to win the grand prize, and it was even more joy to receive the award from Li Jie himself. Li Jie took the special prize representing the special prize from the tall and beautiful hostess, a large cardboard with a picture of Porsche on it, handed it to Chen Xian, and took a photo with her. He Lu in the audience was staring at Chen Xian, who was standing side by side with Li Jie and smiling brightly, and was going crazy with jealousy. This Porsche should be hers, this glory and scenery should also be hers, but now they have all been taken away by the other party. Lu Ji, who was sitting diagonally across from He Lu, looked at her with some gloating. People are like this. When they are unlucky, they hope that someone will be more unlucky than themselves, so that they can feel balanced. Although he only won 100 red envelopes, he was still better than He Lu. In order to win a Porsche, the other party not only put in the big red envelope of 50,000 yuan, but also put in another 4,000 to 5,000 yuan, which was a waste of money. At this time, He Lu suddenly looked away from the stage and noticed Lu Ji's gloating eyes. Her eyes were like daggers, as if she wanted to kill someone. Lu Ji was startled by her eyes, this crazy woman. Although Lu has fair skin, a slightly chubby figure, and good looks, which is the type that is popular with older people, Lu Ji is not interested in her at all. No, it can't be said that he is not interested at all. If he could, he would still be very willing. After taking a group photo, Li Jie shook hands with Chen Xian again. After letting go of Li Jie's hand, Chen Xian did not step down immediately, but said hesitantly, "Mr. Li, can I give you a hug?" Looking at Chen Xian, whose eyes were full of admiration, Li Jie smiled and nodded, "Of course." He loves his fans the most, especially beautiful female fans. Chen Xian stepped forward and hugged Li Jie, while Li Jie patted her back carefully. Seeing the scene on the stage, the employees in the audience started to make a fuss. The smile on Zhou Ziu's face remained unchanged, Xiao Jiao's expression was a little unhappy, Shen Xinyi bit her lip lightly and didn't know what she was thinking, and Lu Kaiu seemed to be lost in memories. Lu Yufei, Wang Zhaining, Luan Xiaolin, Su Yani, and Nini all had different expressions. After awarding the awards, Li Jie made his final speech, and Kudong Group's 2010 annual corporate meeting came to a successful conclusion. At the end of the annual meeting, employees left in an orderly manner. The first to go were senior leaders of the group such as Li Jie, Zhao Jia, and Yu Zhongfeng, then department heads, artists, and a number of internet celebrity anchors, and finally it was the turn of ordinary employees. Huo Lili, Cao Xiaoqian, Song Xiona, Tan Hui, Lin Jing, and Chen Wenjing followed the flow of people out of the hotel together, and then boarded a bus under the guidance of the company's security personnel. It was already 11 o'clock in the evening. In order to transport these 1,500 to 600 employees, the group security department rented more than 20 buses. Otherwise, it would be so late at night with so many people that it would be impossible to get a taxi. After getting in the car, the girls Huo Lili, Cao Xiaoqian, and Song Xiona were still a little excited, and they chatted about the annual meeting. That Lu is too greedy, Cao Xiaoqian said a little bit unbearably. Huo Lili nodded and said, "Yeah, if I didn't say I won 50,000, I would be satisfied with 5,000. Song Xiona said with some ridicule, "What I want is a Porsche, but I don't like the 50,000 yuan. Tan Hui suddenly interrupted and said, "Okay, stop talking." "What's wrong?" Huo Lili and the others followed Tan Hui's gaze and found that Lu had also gotten in the car and walked over to them. Cao Xiaoqian changed the topic and said, "I heard that the company will hold a New Year reception after the New Year, which will be held at Mr. Li's villa. Unfortunately, we are not qualified to participate." Song Xiona said, "How about we give Ziu a few tickets and go see the world?" "Let's forget it," Huo Lili shook her head. It was a high-end cocktail party, and those who were eligible to attend were group executives, celebrities, and big influencers. Even when we went there, we felt out of place. After the annual meeting, we entered the New Year holiday. Except for a few departments, most employees of Kudong Group are on vacation. Li Jie also entered a state of semi-vacation, only going to the company for an hour or two every day before getting off work, and spending more time with Xiao Jiao, Zhou Ziu, Lu Kaiu, Shen Xinyi, Wang Zhaining, and Lu Yufei. However, he feels that vacation is more tiring than working. Soon, it's the end of the year and the new year is approaching. The morning of the 11th is the last time Li Jie comes to the company. Today is the 28th day of the lunar calendar. Tomorrow he will go to Sanya with Xiao Jiao and the others to celebrate the new year. Qwen Technology, Kudong Literature, Kuku Entertainment, Li Jie visited the 8 or 9 subsidiaries of Kudong Group one by one and expressed condolences to the employees who were left behind. After the last stop of the Kudong video came out, it was already past 1 p.m. The office of Kudong Video is located in Jiading, which is relatively far from other companies such as Qwen Technology. After getting on the bus, Li Jie said to Wang Zhaining, Xiaoning, Let me take you back. All the secretaries he worked for the president were on vacation. This time he only brought Wang Zhining, his personal secretary, and 2 bodyguards, Ruan Jing and Zhou Chao, to express condolences to the employees. The Bentley Arnage RL was driving smoothly on the highway. Wang Zhining sat next to Li Jie, looking at him and saying hesitantly, "Brother Jie, the Chinese New Year will be the day after tomorrow." Li Jie glanced at Wang Zhining and understood what she wanted to say. She wants to spend the New Year with him. But if he wants to take her to Sanya with him, Xiao Qiao and the 4 of them will definitely get into trouble. It was the Chinese New Year, and he didn't want them to fight again. But he couldn't bear to leave Wang Zhining in a small rental house and let her spend the New Year alone. After all, she had no one else in the world to rely on except him. Hey, Li Jie couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The more women around him, the more powerless he feels. Don't get me wrong, it's not that I'm physically unable to do what I want, it's just that I'm mentally tired. I used to feel that being able to take care of a few more beautiful girls was a very fulfilling thing, but now I feel that it is a very troublesome thing. Let's discuss it with Xiao Qiao and the other 4 tonight and try to convince them. However, before going to convince Xiao Qiao and the others, he had to go to Lu Yufi's place first. That little dragon girl also needs to be comforted. After sending Wang Zhining back to the small rental house, Li Jie left cruelly regardless of her pitiful appearance. If he couldn't convince Xiao Qiao and the 4 of them, he really couldn't take her to Sanya with him. The Bentley Arnage RL parked at the door of Ziwan Villa. As soon as Li Jie got out of the car, he saw Lu Yufei coming out of the villa, followed by a black cat that looked like briquettes. This cat is a stray cat she picked up recently and named Dong Dong. However, Li Jie still thinks that the name briquettes is more suitable for it. However, Lu Yufei and the black cat expressed strong opposition to this name. "Brother Jie, you are here." Yes, Li Jie smiled at Lu Yufei and walked into the villa with her in his arms. Seeing the 2 people walking in, Mother Lu stood up from the sofa with a smile and said, "Xiao Jie, you are here." "Auntie," Li Jie also greeted Mother Lu with a smile. After sitting down on the sofa, the 3 of them chatted for a while, and then Mother Lu went back to the room with a wink, leaving the space for the 2 of them. Seeing that Liu's mother was gone, Li Jie leaned closer to Lu Yufei and put his arm around her shoulders. The black cat clinging to Lu Yufei's arms gave Li Jie a hostile look and began to pull at him with its paws. Apparently he regarded him as an enemy vying for favor. Li Jie grabbed it from Lu Yufei's arms and placed it on the ground. "Black ball, go and play." "Meow," the black cat yelled angrily. Lu Yufei glanced at him and said with a smile, "Brother Jie, stop calling Dong Dong black ball all the time. Look at him, he's getting angry." Li Jie looked at her and smiled lightly, then lowered his head and kissed her. Seeing Li Jie bullying his shit shoveler, the black cat jumped up and down angrily and kept barking. Li Jie was upset by the black ball, kicked it away, and picked up Lu Yufei from the waist. "Let's go back to the room and play the scene." "What's going on this time?" "Return to the condor." Li Jie used to like Wang Yuyan, but now he likes little dragon girl even more. By the time Li Jie returned to Sandalwood Villa, it was already 10 o'clock in the evening. In the living room on the first floor, Xiao Qiao was the only one watching TV. Seeing Li Jie walk in, she said with a half smile, "You are a very busy boss. It's almost the Chinese New Year, and you have to work overtime until so late. It's really hard work." She specially emphasized the word hard work. Li Jie smiled, took off his suit jacket, sat down next to Xiao Qiao, and held her in his arms. "Qiao Bao. What are you doing?" Xiao Qiao said a little awkwardly. "You are always the most important in my heart." Li Jie knew that Xiao Qiao was staying in the living room just to wait for him to come back so that he could see him as soon as possible. Xiao Qiao smiled disapprovingly, "Am I the most important?" "Not necessarily, I think Fox Joe is much more important than me in your heart." After she finished speaking, she thought of something, her nose became sore, and she almost shed tears. She was probably really going to lose, to that Joe Fox. Li Jie looked at the sparkling tears in Xiao Jiao's eyes, and his emotions were complicated and unspeakable, including discomfort, distress and pity. Among his women, Xiao Jiao is not the most beautiful one, let alone the one with the best figure. She is not smart enough, capable enough, not considerate enough, and has many shortcomings. But she will always be the most special one in his heart, irreplaceable. Thinking like this, Li Jie whispered something in Xiao Jiao's ear. After hearing this, Xiao Jiao suddenly showed an expression of uncontrollable surprise. "Husband, are you telling the truth? It's a bit lame, but this chapter is really a bit watery." However, the last two chapters were not deliberately superficial. Instead, they were written with great care. The main purpose was to use the annual meeting as an opportunity to reveal many minor characters. As for why you wrote He Lu, a book can't just be about the protagonist. I think it also needs some minor characters who have some drama. Just like Zhang Qian, Zhang Yu, He Lu, He's Hegang, Yang Hao, etc.